The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
It's the third and hopefully final week for the Free Speech TV membership drive and fund drive. We have, levels of gifts at $120 and $240 and all that kind of stuff. But also, just calling up and saying, hey, I'd like to be a member of Free Speech TV. They're not going to sell your name or mailing list or personal information. It's all kept very confidential. It's just for Free Speech TV. And in fact, it's not even a lot of information. I think it's just basically, how to send you the newsletter in email or by mail if you prefer. But the important thing is that Free Speech TV then can go to larger donors, and because there are some wealthy individuals who say, oh yeah, I'll kick in $5,000, but prove to me that you're really doing something worthwhile. I'm a busy guy, don't have time to watch it, whatever, and say, well, here, look at the thousands of people who are making small contributions to Free Speech TV. Oh, hey, you've got something going there. You see how this works, right? So, of course, Free Speech TV needs the money. We had last Friday, I've been keeping you up to date on this. We're trying to hit $10,000 a day. We have done that one day. Last Friday, we were a little over 8,000. And the whole week before that, we never cracked 2,000. So we really need your help. Free Speech TV is way behind. I don't want this fundraiser to run longer than the last one we had to extend by a couple of days. Don't want that to happen. Please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution. And as I said, you can become a member of Free Speech TV for free, or you can become a member of Free Speech TV with a $5 gift, a $10 gift, any, $25. Say, hey, instead of going out to dinner tonight, or instead of even going to McDonald's tonight, let's just send that $5 or $10 to Free Speech TV. Give them a call now, 877-378-8669. Now, all that said, if you can afford a slightly larger gift at the $80 level, Free Speech TV will send you the Stamp Stampede stamp against Big Pharma, so you can stamp all your money, which means an average of 761 people will see every dollar bill that you stamp, and before the government recycles the currency, and the Free Speech TV water bottle. That's a good deal at $80. With a $120 gift, you get the anti-pharma stamp and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Mike Papantonio's book Law and Vengeance. That's the $120. With a $240 gift, you get the water bottle and stamp. You get the book by Mike Papantonio, his brand new novel, Law and Vengeance, and Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free. With $360, you get all of those things, the look out for Big Pharma, Stamp Stampede, self-inking, stamp your dollars stamp, and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Law and Vengeance by Mike Papantonio, plus They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, plus Unequal Protection autographed by Thom Hartmann, because I wrote the book, and it's the book on corporate personhood, and relatively recently updated to include Citizens United and all that kind of stuff. With a $480 gift, which could be $40 a month for a year, you get all those books. You get the water bottle, the anti-pharma stamp, Law and Vengeance by Papantonio, They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, Unequal Protection by Thom Hartmann, and also Democracy in Chains by Nancy MacLean. We've had Nancy McLean on this program. Her book is an absolutely extraordinary book about, essentially the state of democracy in the United States right now. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm going to be living part-time in D.C. and part-time in Portland, Oregon. And so we'll have to figure out which city we're going to meet in, but we'll organize those things and we'll get together for a meal. So, or maybe someplace else. I mean, we're setting up an event for Chicago for October, and we might be doing a little more traveling too now that this is the last week that I'm doing the TV show on RT. So after that, I'll have a lot more freedom to travel around, take this show on the road. I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot that we can do. So I might come to a town near you. But none of that's going to happen if we don't keep this show alive and this television network alive. And so far, we've had some fundraisers where we keep it alive, and we've had some fundraisers where we actually raised a little extra and we were able to help bring a new program on the air or pick up a couple of new documentaries or something like that. It would be really nice to do that latter, although I realize that with all these natural disasters, and so many people have been calling in and saying, my budget for this year was $100 for philanthropy, and I've already sent half of that to the Red Cross. So, that kind of thing. I get that. And it's one of the reasons we made the gifts so book heavy, so many books, so that you could use them as gifts. This is a gift shopping time as well as anything else. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Is that right? Yeah, there we go. give us a call or freespeech.org. Thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you live from Washington, D.C., not doing my show from my bedroom for a week. It was a great week. We had a wonderful time. Our daughter had a wonderful wedding. It was great seeing old friends and whatnot, and it's nice being back in D.C. as well. Although I love both these cities, I really do. The president of the United States, while he's asserting it has nothing to do with race, is objecting to mostly people of color. There have been a few white allies, but mostly people of color going to one knee during the national anthem to protest essentially institutional racism in the United States. Specifically, as I recall, this all began with police killings of unarmed black men. And, and for that matter, I mean, I think it's the third verse of the Star-Spangled Banner, is a little racist, shall we say. You can look it up, but it's a reference to the slaves who went to fight on behalf of the British, as I recall. But it's not the friendliest thing. But that said, I'm not anti Star-Spangled Banner or flag. But what Trump is doing is and by the way, Trump is not alone in this. The media is all over this as well. And I realize I'm part of the media, and here I am doing it. But it's really important to say this because the rest of the media is not going to say this. And that is that, he's basically just using the media to deflect from all the things that are going on right now. And I think one of the most important is that a U.S. territory filled with 3 million U.S. citizens, Puerto Rico, is devastated from, a global warming amped up tropical storm or hurricane. And Trump would rather not talk about that. That's going to require money. It's going to require resources. We should be sending the Navy down there. We should be sending other parts of the U.S. military that have the ability to land or to dock in Puerto Rico. This is part of the United States. It's a U.S. territory. The same with U.S. Virgin Islands. And they've been absolutely devastated.
And I can't tell that Trump is doing anything. But, he doesn't want to talk about that. His spokespeople don't want to talk about that. His minions don't want to talk about that. This is classical, on the one hand, classic race baiting, classic, this is Trump. He's essentially, trash talking black players. I mean, that's what it comes down to. For protesting institutional racism. How dare they? Right. And now, Tom Brady is talking back to him. There's been at least one owner talking back to him. But as this is going on, there's serious stuff happening in the world. I mean, Trump is about to, in all probability, have an epic fail in his most recent attempt to repeal Obamacare, which, by the way, is going to resume again after January 1st. But this thing about, not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, but instead going down on one knee, arguably that's, I would say, even more respectful. I mean, the First Amendment of the Constitution protects our right to dissent, essentially. Our country was founded on dissent. And it was only in 2009 that sports teams started coming on the field for the national anthem. That was 8 years ago. And they started doing it because the U.S. Pentagon was giving them hundreds of thousands of dollars. I saw one story that said that Roger Goodell, when he was running the NFL, sent back $700,000 to the Pentagon and said, thanks, but no thanks. But this whole militarization, this whole hyping up of the military, this came out of George W. Bush lying us into a war in Iraq and stupidly going into a war in Afghanistan when neither one were even remotely necessary. He did it for purely political purposes. And there were not enough warriors for the war. So the Bush administration had to start, leaning on people. Hey, it's a wonderful thing. Let's run ads with the movie theaters, be everything you can be. And let's throw in some good bennies, so if you go in the military, you can also get a college education, et cetera, et cetera. And all of this, and let's be praiseful of our military, let them board airplanes first, all that kind of stuff, that comes along with nationalism and militarism that comes along with being at war. It's not unusual. It's not even something that is necessarily, in the abstract, worthy of criticism. But Trump is behaving as if the teams coming out on the field and standing for the Pledge of Allegiance is something that goes back to Francis Scott Key or George Washington. And I'm sorry, it goes back to 2009 when the Pentagon started saying, we need more good press for the military because we're short on cannon fodder. I mean, that's what it came down to. And Trump is turning this thing into a, quote, cultural issue. Well, cultural issues, I mean, historically, this is what the Republican Party does when they don't want to talk about what's really going on. What's really going on is Scott Pruitt, day by day, literally day by day, is devastating the Environmental Protection Agency. Chemical companies no longer seeing inspectors. Big polluters not having to worry. The IRS, they're changing the policies now. Or at least they want to. So that if you get an earned income tax credit, in other words, if you make less than $25,000 a year, basically, and you get money back from the government, you automatically get audited, which is going to, suck up all the time of thousands of IRS auditors so that they won't be able to audit rich people. You've got Ryan Zinke taking, national monuments like Bears Ears and others that are, not only national monuments, but in many cases sacred places for Native Americans who have reservations nearby and who have historically used this land. I mean, this is this despicable thing that John McCain and Jeff Flake did with Apache Tears. Despicable. Flipping it for another piece of land and then selling it off to an Australian mining company. But this is what American politicians who take money from groups like Australian mining companies do. But there's serious stuff going on. Now, there's also serious stuff going on with regard, this is not to diminish what Colin Kaepernick started here. It's not to say it's not serious at all. It is worthy of coverage. But the coverage is, in my mind, the wrong kind of coverage. I mean, the coverage should be, okay, look at all these athletes who are taking this position. Why? Why are they doing this? What kind of an America are they envisioning? What specifically about America or about Trump or about our policies are they protesting? Have you heard any conversation, any kind of meaningful conversation about those kind of issues? By and large, not. Maybe on some of the wonkiest of the wonky weekend shows kind of things, but and my apologies, I missed all of them. I was, at a wedding all day Saturday, and I was flying all day Sunday. I got home late last night, fell into bed, and so I just kind of caught up this morning. But I'd be willing to bet that the vast majority of the coverage was not about why are these players doing this? What is it that provoked this? What is the history of this? Where are they going with this? See, I see these protests as the logical extension. This is nonviolent, passive, disruptive protest. This is what Martin Luther King was doing in the 60s and before. This is what the civil rights movement has always done. It's what the women's rights movement did back, prior to the 1920s. This is it's what Jesus did. This is the highest calling, to call out a social wrong in a way that doesn't disrupt society, that doesn't, in other words, I mean, it's not like, they're throwing tin cans into the stands or shooting off fireworks or something like that. And it's not the kind of intimidating disruptive that the right-wingers do when they show up at their so-called protests with their open carry guns, like we saw in Charlottesville, Virginia. I mean, that's a different kind of protest. And it's also, allowed by the First Amendment. But I mean, if you want protest that's worthy of critique or criticism, how about the ones where the people show, oh, wait a minute, those are white people showing up with guns. I forgot. The last time a bunch of black people showed up with guns, it was Bobby Seale and his friends in California back in the 60s. And within weeks, Ronald Reagan had gun control laws in California. But white people showing up with guns, no problem. So number one, there is a racial component to this. In fact, I'd say it's at the core of the whole thing. And Trump saying, oh, I never even mentioned race. Well, you don't have to mention race. Lee Atwater taught us that, right? You don't want to say race, just say forced busing in the 60s. You don't want to say forced busing in the 60s. In the 80s, you say tax cuts. And as Lee Atwater said, and everybody knows that's going to help the rich people and hurt the poor people, which is going to hurt the black people, right? This is all about race.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So your thoughts on this? We're going to check in with Trita Parsi a little later on in the program. And Professor Peter Wadhams, one of the leading climate scientists in the world, is going to be in the studio with us. And welcome back. James in Dothan, Alabama. Hey, James, thanks for watching Free Speech on the DirecTV satellite network. What's up?
Hey, Tom, good to holler at you again, old man. I want to be brief concerning this kneeling down with the athletes and the thing that the statement that Trump made in Alabama. I guarantee if the NFL and the NBA was 80% white, Trump would have turned that around and he would have stood up for the rights of the First Amendment for the white players that's running the NBA or whatever. It's just a joke. And
especially if they were protesting affirmative action or something like that. Yes.
Yeah. So he's just doing that for political reasons, and people just rallying him on and just cheering him on and It's just sick to see this evil in the White House, and maybe one day he won't be there for us. You know, we elect him out, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, Tom.
You're welcome, James. Thank you. Good sentiments all. Very well said. Dominic in San Antonio. Hey, Dominic. Thanks for watching Free Speech. What's up?
Hello, Mr. Hartman. Shout out to Mr. James. That was very good what he said. Your comments, sir. I just want reassurance. Calling from a military family regarding everything he said, and not only this weekend, sir, but all the way up from the moment he got into office, his campaign to this day. Just enlighten me. Please share your thoughts.
Well, my thoughts on Trump and the military is that Trump has been exploiting the military, that, you know, patriotism has a long and honorable and storied history in the United States, all the way back to the American Revolution, and arguably before that. And, you know, Donald Trump is a guy who apparently used a phony X-ray showing that he had bone spurs that were so crippling that he couldn't show up to go off to war in Vietnam. And this is the guy who is constantly using military people as props, it seems to me. And this saying that, you know, Kaepernick is somehow disrespecting the flag when he's not even, you know, this has got nothing to do with the flag. And Kaepernick is there. Well, Kaepernick is not, because he's not working. But, you know, these players are you know, they're honoring the Star Spangled Banner. They're just doing it with a hint of protest. Your thoughts,
so
Dominic?
I'm sorry. So my brothers and sisters can't protest because we have somehow our rights have been revoked.
I don't understand what you mean.
Well, I mean, we can. The NFL players, for example, they can go ahead and they're kneeling like Kaepernick, but he wants to attack those people, and yet he wants to use it.
Well, hang on just a second. Who's the he that you're talking about, and who's those people who's being attacked?
Trump.
So Trump wants to attack the
players protesting.
Right.
And basically what I'm trying to say is, I watch your show and I know what the Republican strategy is to devise and for whatever reason he's doing it right now at this point. Right. He's probably trying to pass legislation or something that's going to mess us all over. Yeah,
it could be. Yeah, Dominic, with regard to military families, I mean, you know, there's once you're in the military, you're covered by the UCMJ, not the Constitution. So there's a different set of rules. But I'm not sure that this has to do with military families. Thank you for your service, Dominic, and your family. We'll be back.
Hi there, I'm Marie with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving donations, volunteering, or spreading the word about Free Speech TV, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to exist. And for that, I want to say thank you. Now you can give to the network powered by the people by donating an unwanted or used vehicle through our Vehicles of Change program. If you have an old car, RV, or even a motorcycle, Free Speech TV can use it to grow and thrive. You can make a bigger difference in supporting Free Speech TV by giving an old car. It's a great way to support the network without having to dig into your bank account. Just call 877-378-8669 and ask for more information about Vehicles of Change. Again, the number to call is 877-378-8669. If it has a VIN, we'll take it in. Thank you.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And just some of the stuff that has been some of the quotes and whatnot that have been going on around this thing. Oh, there's a great cartoon, Kevin Necessary, of Lady Liberty on her knee. Here we have this. There's just this long collection of Twitter feeds. This was over Democratic Underground, actually. I think it was posted by Icy Mist, and basketball players, football players, baseball players. I mean, team owners. It's like this. People are standing up to Trump. And Sean King retweeted E. Raymond's tweet this morning, which I thought was real interesting. It was, in fact, liked by Colin Kaepernick. And it said, thinking NFL players are protesting the flag is like thinking Rosa Parks was protesting public transportation. Just let that sink in for a minute. Thinking that NFL players are protesting the flag, in quotes, is like thinking Rosa Parks was protesting public transportation. And then E. Raymond says, despite the many post-game interviews of Kaepernick, where he brilliantly articulates his reasons for his actions, folks have run off with their own false narratives, twisting it to be about patriotism and troops. It's got nothing to do with either one. As someone who's worn a police uniform for 5 days a week for over 9 years and patrolled some of the toughest neighborhoods in this nation, it's from that vantage point that I confirm the systemic and cultural issues in law enforcement that Colin Kaepernick speaks of, that they exist and they need to be rectified. I'm with Kaepernick, Officers for Kaepernick. These are the hashtags. I'm with Cap, Officers for Kaepernick, Justice League NYC, Kaepernick, and take a knee. And, good on you. But so anyhow, there's a lot going on in this healthcare bill and whatnot is not among the least of them. But I think that the big point here, and I see a lot of you. There's a lot of calls. We'll pick them up after we come back from the break. Actually, from the break, we're going to talk to Trita Parsi about Iran for a few minutes. But then after that, I'll pick up your phone calls and we'll continue with this topic. In a way, it is not a life and death issue. It's not like North Korea or people dying in Puerto Rico and the president's ignoring them. But on the other hand, it is a life and death issue. You're talking about the rights of people of color in this country to live their lives unmolested, to live their lives, with pride and with dignity and with the simple respect that comes from seeing the humanity in all of us by all of us. And once again, I find myself saying, this is a conversation. It's a conversation all of us need to have. But white people need to begin to own up to what Donald Trump is actually saying here, for example. And the deep level of ignorance associated with this, to the point where NASCAR owners, which is now an entirely white sport, are saying, oh, yeah, we'd fire anybody who did that. And then Dale Earnhardt Jr. says, oh, no, it's a good thing.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We're going to be back with Trita Parsi and then your calls. Stick around.
It's the third and hopefully final week for the Free Speech TV membership drive and fund drive. We have, levels of gifts at $120 and $240 and all that kind of stuff. But also just calling up and saying, hey, I'd like to be a member of Free Speech TV. They're not going to sell your name or mailing list or personal information. It's all kept very confidential. It's just for Free Speech TV. And in fact, it's not even a lot of information. I think it's just basically, how to send you the newsletter in email or by mail if you prefer. But the important thing is that Free Speech TV then can go to larger donors, and because there are some wealthy individuals who say, oh yeah, I'll kick in $5,000, but prove to me that you're really doing something worthwhile. I'm a busy guy, don't have time to watch it, whatever, and say, well, here, look at the thousands of people who are making small contributions to Free Speech TV. Oh, hey, you've got something going there. You see how this works, right? So, of course, Free Speech TV needs the money. We had last Friday, I've been keeping you up to date on this. We're trying to hit $10,000 a day. We have done that once, one day. Last Friday, we were a little over 8,000. And the whole week before that, we never cracked 2,000. So we really need your help. Free Speech TV is way behind. I don't want this fundraiser to run longer than the last one we had to extend by a couple of days. Don't want that to happen. Please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution. And as I said, you can become a member of Free Speech TV for free, or you can become a member of Free Speech TV with a $5 gift, a $10 gift, any, $25. Say, hey, instead of going out to dinner tonight, or instead of even going to McDonald's tonight, let's just send that $5 or $10 to Free Speech TV. Give them a call now, 877-378-8669. Now, all that said, if you can afford a slightly larger gift at the $80 level, Free Speech TV will send you the Stamp Stampede stamp against Big Pharma, so you can stamp all your money, which means an average of 761 people will see every dollar bill that you stamp, and before the government recycles the currency, and the Free Speech TV water bottle. That's a good deal at $80. With a $120 gift, you get the anti-pharma stamp and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Mike Papantonio's book, Law and Vengeance. That's the $120. With a $240 gift, you get the water bottle and stamp. You get the book by Mike Papantonio, his brand new novel, Law and Vengeance, and Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free. With $360, you get all of those things, the look out for Big Pharma, Stamp Stampede, self-inking, stamp your dollars stamp, and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Law and Vengeance by Mike Papantonio, plus They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, plus Unequal Protection autographed by Thom Hartmann, because I wrote the book, and it's the book on corporate personhood, and relatively recently updated to include Citizens United and all that kind of stuff. With a $480 gift, which could be $40 a month for a year, you get all those books. You get the water bottle, the anti-pharma stamp, Law and Vengeance by Papantonio, They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, Unequal Protection by Thom Hartmann, and also Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean. We've had Nancy McLean on this program. Her book is an absolutely extraordinary book about, essentially the state of democracy in the United States right now. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm going to be living part-time in D.C. and part-time in Portland, Oregon. And so we'll have to figure out which city we're going to meet in, but we'll organize those things and we'll get together for a meal. So, or maybe someplace else. I mean, we're setting up an event for Chicago for October, and we might be doing a little more traveling too now that this is the last week that I'm doing the TV show on RT. So after that, I'll have a lot more freedom to travel around, take this show on the road. I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot that we can do. So I might come to a town near you. But none of that's going to happen if we don't keep this show alive and this television network alive. And, so far we've had some fundraisers where we keep it alive, and we've had some fundraisers where we actually raised a little extra and we were able to help bring a new program on the air or pick up a couple of new documentaries or something like that. It would be really nice to do that latter, although I realize that with all these natural disasters, and so many people have been calling in and saying, my budget for this year was $100 for philanthropy, and I've already sent half of that to the Red Cross. So, that kind of thing. I get that. And that's one of the reasons we made the gifts so book heavy, so many books, so that you could use them as gifts. This is a gift shopping time as well as anything else. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Is that right? Yeah, there we go. give us a call or freespeech.org. Thank you so much. And welcome back. Trita Parsi is on the line with us. He's the founder and president of the National Iranian American Council, NIAC, N-I-A-C. He's the author of several books. His most recent, Losing an Enemy, a brilliant book worth checking out. The website is niacouncil.org, N-I-A-council.org. And you can tweet him at tparsi, T-P-A-R-S-I, as in Trita Parsi. Trita, welcome to the program, or welcome back to the program. It's been a while.
Thank you so much for having me again.
You've got this brilliant piece that you wrote for The Guardian last Tuesday titled, Trump is conflating Pyongyang with Tehran. The results could be catastrophic. Can you lay out that argument for us?
Yes, I mean, what you saw Trump has been doing, and I wrote this more than, I think, a week before his latest tweet on this matter, in which he was directly linking Iran and North Korea. And my argument was that he is deliberately conflating North Korea with Iran and Iran with North Korea in order to be able to maximize the chances of going forward with these very, very hawkish arguments that he's presenting. And what you have right now is that on October 15th, that's the deadline for President Trump to certify that Iran is complying with the nuclear agreement. He has to certify it to Congress. Now, Iran is complying with the agreement. The IAEA has already written 8 reports confirming this. Trump is very angry that he has to certify that. But Trump also has the option of saying, yes, they are complying with the agreement, but we still think it's not in the U.S.'s national interest to continue to lift sanctions on Iran. If he does that, then he's giving Congress 60 days to reinstate sanctions on Iran. And if they do so, the U.S. is in violation of the deal. The deal will potentially survive, but nevertheless, the U.S. will have withdrawn from it. And that's a very dangerous scenario, because the two key things that the deal achieved was that it took 2 very bad scenarios off the table. The scenario of Iran having an access to a nuclear bomb or a pathway to a nuclear bomb, and the scenario of the United States and Iran going to war with each other again. If you kill the deal, or if you withdraw from the deal, these 2 bad scenarios come back onto the table. And that's where we are right now. This may happen just in the next 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. This conflating one with another, what occurs to me is the parallel of Vietnam, which I remember well, old fart that I am. And that was that Vietnam, North Vietnam going communist, this whole domino theory that the Soviet Union was expanding, Mao's China was expanding, that we had to stop communism, blah-de-blah-de-blah, and therefore this was this existential battle. And it turned out to be, irrelevant. First of all, the whole domino theory was crazy. And then we used a lie, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution to get into it. Is there any kind of an analogy there, or am I just imagining something here?
No, I mean, without a doubt, if you kill this deal, and then if you conflate Iran and North Korea, and we see the escalation we're seeing with North Korea, it will definitely have spillover effects. And arguments will be started to be presented that you have to take out Iran in order to be able to be effective against North Korea, or you have to show the Iranians that you're serious by going nuclear against North Korea. It's a logic that has been used in many different places before, unfortunately has a certain degree of effectiveness with the American public. And it's very clear that Trump is preparing the ground for using arguments of this kind.
Yeah, this very, very dangerous stuff. And then meanwhile, NIAC, your organization, has condemned the Muslim ban 3.0. This is in the news today. It's not entirely the new countries that Trump is banning are not, number one, they're not time limited, and number two, they're not Muslim majority countries. They're all, several of them are not. Venezuela is largely Catholic, for example. Your thoughts on where he's going with this, and what kind of impact this has, both on the security of the United States internally and also on the perception of the United States around the world, which indirectly or directly, arguably, affects our security?
It's a transparent little gimmick to try to make sure that this ban does not come across as a Muslim ban, because they understand that that would be unconstitutional by adding 2 countries, Venezuela and North Korea, that are not Muslim. Now, in the case of North Korea, really we needed a ban. Their own government is banning them from coming here. So we don't have any immigration or non-immigrants coming in from North Korea to begin with. So this doesn't do anything. I think what this ban started off with was not a question of where is the threat and what do we need to do to minimize it. If that was the case, we would have had not necessarily a national ban, but we would have measures that would be addressing the fact that there's so much radicalization taking place in Saudi Arabia, and that so many of the victims of terror have come at the hands of groups that either have been funded, trained, or one way or another linked to the Wahhabi movements coming out of Saudi Arabia. But that is not the case here. We're not even addressing Saudi Arabia whatsoever. In fact, Trump is going to Saudi Arabia and he's hugging them to death and selling them $110 billion of weapons. Instead, what we've started off with is a question: who on this planet does the United States have bad relations with? Who could we get away with imposing measures of this kind in order to appear tough, not in order to actually make the United States more secure? Because all this is quite superficial to target North Korea that doesn't even have anyone coming over here. Moreover, perhaps most importantly, the countries the United States have bad relations with is not necessarily the same countries whose citizenship may constitute a threat to the U.S. Iran is a case in point. You have no examples of any Iranian national engaging in any lethal act of terrorism on U.S. soil. You have plenty, unfortunately, coming from Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Now, of course, the Iranians have a bad relationship, the Iranian government has, with the U.S. government. But that doesn't mean that their own citizenship is a threat. In fact, Trump himself at the UN only days earlier said that the Iranian people are not the enemies of the United States. And then 5-6 days later, he completely bans them from being able to come and visit the U.S., come here to see their relatives, etc. This is once again an effort in which Trump's ego has been put ahead of any consideration to advance American security.
Yeah, or his what he or his advisors think is his political future, or both. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Dr. Trita Parsi, the founder and president of the National Iranian American Council, NIAC, his new book, Losing an Enemy, NIACouncil.org is the website. You can tweet him at tparsi, T-P-A-R-S-I. Dr. Parsi, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Great talk.
Thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with your calls and more of the news of the day right after this. And welcome back. Elizabeth in Brookville, Ohio. Hey, Elizabeth, what's on your mind today?
Oh, good afternoon, Tom. I'm so moved. I'm angry. This president's lewd, lascivious, sexist, racist conduct is much more disrespectful to the office of president than any bending of a knee. It certainly, the bending of a knee does not show any disrespect to our flag or our military.
If anything, it's traditionally a gesture of great respect. You would, if you were brought into the presence of the king, you would go on your knee.
And your hand over your heart.
Right.
The problem here is that this man claimed that he was going to win over African Americans. It didn't happen. He said he was going to govern. He can't govern. All of this is to cover up the fact that he's not able to govern. He is a racist and a sexist, and he is more disrespectful to this flag and the United States of America with all of its different ethnic groups and religious groups. He was disrespectful to President Obama by claiming that Vladimir Putin was a better president than President Obama. He made mockery of our Justice Department by singling out Comey and claiming that he was stupid or crazy, because Comey is much more intelligent and much more respected than Donald Trump. America needs to wake up and put pressure on Congress to go on and impeach him before he ruins us forever.
I agree.
So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Very, very well said. Whether it's impeachment or the 25th Amendment or just, either of which will become much more viable after the elections next November if there's a wipeout. But, we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. Thank you for the call. Jim in Leavenworth, Kansas. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind? Thanks for watching Free Speech.
Thank you, Tom, for all you do. I just wanted to state, like Dr. Parsi, your last guest on your show, he was exactly right. But when you have ego and you have insanity mixed up, it's not a good mixture. With what happened today and the statements from North Korea that basically they're viewing it as a declaration of war, and there's thermonuclear weapons and chemical weapons going to be involved. And this will act as a domino effect if anything kicks off. I mean, this is just total insanity. And if you look at personality profiles, you can see, like, there's some real antisocial characteristics coming out of our leadership. And that's not a good thing because, you're playing with some pretty powerful, institutions that could, with weapons and war and nuclear war, that can really kind of create horrible effects, if not, end life.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
Yeah, it truly is. And Trump is, as you say, a merchant of chaos. It's all the more important for us to wake up and stay woke, I don't know how to say it beyond that. And to tell everybody about good news sources and good resources to really know what's going on. Jim, thanks for your contribution. Thanks for your call to Free Speech TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Robert in Mission Viejo, California. Hey, Robert, what's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, Tom. I've been calling Puerto Rico Trump's Katrina because he has done nothing there. He's off here doing all this Twitter ridiculous crap. Well, millions of people are without water, without electricity. There are going to be thousands of people die there as a result of their infrastructure being destroyed. And here's Trump not going there, not paying any attention to it.
Well, it is an island, even though it's a U.S. protectorate, a U.S. territory. It is an island filled with largely brown people who speak Spanish. So should it surprise us that that Donald Trump has little interest in it?
No, not at all. And you know what? I was thinking that there's a difference between what's normal and what's right.
Yeah.
And I think what's normal in America for a fairly substantial portion of our population is racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, white supremacism.
And male supremacy, yes.
And male supremacy, yeah. And Trump, and the question we have is, are we going to reject or embrace, right? And we were on our way to rejecting, and then Trump comes along and grabs it with both hands.
Right.
And that's why people said, oh, he hears me, he speaks for me, because he tapped into that nascent strain. And we, on the progressive side, said things like, she's a flawed candidate, or I'm going to hold my nose and vote for her, which gave credibility to the attack from the other side.
Well, not all of us were saying that, but and again, I don't see any value in relitigating the election. Excuse me, but what Donald Trump is doing at so many levels, it seems like to me it's all of one cloth. Basically, he's shouting out
to the frightened white supremacists who are seeing our nation become a majority-minority country right in front of their eyes and don't know what to do about it and are freaked out about it. And then you've got, an entire media operation from Fox So-Called News to right-wing hate radio to a whole bunch of different right-wing websites. And now, even a broadcasting television station chain nationwide echoing these kinds of messages. And it's not useful for the United States, in my opinion. Thanks for the call. Bob in Wheeling, Illinois. Hey, Bob, what's up?
Hello, Tom. Just a couple of things. I wanted to talk about ESPN, but first, I am a Vietnam veteran, and I do not at all feel disrespected by people standing or kneeling, whatever. Nowhere near as much as I do by having a racist represent our country overseas and stuff. But what I actually called about was I just walked out from a grocery store. That's why I'm out of breath. What I actually called about was ESPN this morning. You were talking about, nobody was talking about it. They spent more than half of the time on different programs talking about the reason that these athletes and people have been kneeling.
That's great.
Not the fact that they were doing it, but why they were doing it and how they thought it might affect things going forward. So there is a discussion out there, and it's been prompted by Kaepernick and by that idiot's response to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fascinating. I'm so sports illiterate. I don't watch. I'm not even sure where to find ESPN on the TV screen. But that's good news, Bob. That's really good news, and I'm glad to hear it. It's because this is the direction we need to be going. This is just another. It's another eruption of protest over institutional racism and white male supremacy in this country. And it's an opportunity for us to have that conversation. And Trump, of course, is trying to turn it into an opportunity to play Richard Nixon and divide people from each other. And, the silent majority was code for, the way white people want things. And he's essentially doing the same thing. But thank you for that, Bob. Thanks. That was interesting information. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
It's totally how white people want things. I'm struck by the reaction of the right in this NFL situation, whereas I keep hearing that these players, and they're referring to mostly African-American players, these players should be grateful for the multi-million-dollar jobs that America has given them. And they only work 6 months a year. I guess they should be grateful because the last time America gave their forefathers jobs, they were working for free and working 16 hours a day.
Right.
So, but what we see is that when white people make millions of dollars, they use that money to petition their government. That's their free speech. But apparently, black African-American players are not allowed to, with their money doesn't buy them any free speech. But I'm struck also by the contradiction in this, is that they feel that America owns these players. These players, Michael Bennett is employed by the Seattle Seahawks. He doesn't even work for the NFL. He works for the Seattle Seahawks.
Right.
Okay, so it's funny how now white America feels like because we are the consumers of this product, we are the owners of the product.
Right.
Whereas in any other, they don't see.
Well, we do pay for the stadiums, Paul.
Being a job creator, they say that now we're the consumers.
Right.
We're also job creators and we're job creators when we want to be, and we're consumers when we want to be, and that's why we have. See, so the white perception is the ball is always in our court. We get to decide all the time how to call the shots.
Well, and that's the definition of white privilege, or one of them.
Go
ahead.
That's what I'm getting at, is that this is the reaction and that the NFL players, they don't seem to understand this, that you see this, the Players Association is united, but there are players who disagree, and they don't seem to understand that they can be united while some of them, while they may disagree. Some of the players may disagree with the other players. Doesn't mean what they're united is that they're united in not letting this issue divide the players.
Right.
And that's what they're united on. But the message from Donald Trump that is resonating with much of white America, or some of white America at least, is that this issue should divide people. You should be divided, and so therefore your free speech, you don't really have free speech if you decide, for whatever reason, not to stand for the national anthem or not to remove your hat, as I don't remove my hat or my sunglasses at a baseball game because of my eye disease. My eyes are very, very sensitive to light, bright sunny day at a ballpark. And I did have one guy, this was about 15 years ago, smack me on the back and say, "Hey, you're supposed to take off your hat." And I just shook my head at him. And then I sat down, and he said, after it was over, he said, "Idiot."
Yeah.
So he was giving me grief.
Yeah.
And I didn't explain anything to him. I thought, I don't need to explain to him why I don't take off my hat and my sunglasses.
Right. Yeah.
He thinks I should, and I don't need to. And so I feel like, well, now that the national anthem has become a patriotism test, I don't think I'm going to stand for it either.
Yeah.
Because I don't take patriotism tests.
And I don't think most of us should. I think it was Samuel Johnson who said patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel, or a false patriotism, or whatever the adjective was that he was using, and that's just absolutely what's going on here, Paul. And this is, I just see echoes of Nixon all over this. This I see it with the Korea policy, going back to Vietnam. I'm seeing it with the Iran policy going back to Vietnam. I'm wondering how much Roger Stone is advising Donald Trump, or whatever. Anyhow, Paul, well said. Well said. Thank you for the call. Alfonso in Cleveland, Mississippi. Hey, Alfonso, what's up?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you doing, Tom?
Fine, thank you. We got about a minute and a half here till the end of the hour. What's on your mind?
Well, what I wanted to say is I've listened to what's said, and it's great information to help eliminate ignorance, number one. But what I was thinking is, as a musician, that song was written in the heat of battle years and years ago by one individual. It was adopted by, I guess, one of the presidents in the 30s as the national anthem, and of course agreed by Congress a little later on. But it was all about war, and then we have beautiful songs like "America the Beautiful" that focus on America and not necessarily the other, the other intentions of whatever was written in the first place.
Right, less militaristic.
Right. So it disturbs me that in the midst of all that we try to do as an American people together, regardless of the color of our skin, we still find ways to nitpick some of the most, most minute things to focus on, when our country should be trying to focus on something else altogether, in the midst of this. But I do understand that now that Kaepernick has opened this door, it stands a chance that we might have a chance to at least come to a table, a round table of discussion to further, eliminate the problem.
Agreed, Alfonso. I think it's a real issue that really needs coverage. At the same time, I think that Trump is exploiting it for all it's worth. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by EcoWine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the organic wine company, EcoWine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
It's the third and hopefully final week for the Free Speech TV membership drive and fund drive. We have, levels of gifts at $120 and $240 and all that kind of stuff. But also, just calling up and saying, hey, I'd like to be a member of Free Speech TV. They're not going to sell your name or mailing list or personal information. It's all kept very confidential. It's just for Free Speech TV. And in fact, it's not even a lot of information. I think it's just basically, how to send you the newsletter in email or by mail if you prefer. But the important thing is that Free Speech TV then can go to larger donors, and because there are some wealthy individuals who say, oh yeah, I'll kick in $5,000, but prove to me that you're really doing something worthwhile. I'm a busy guy, don't have time to watch it, whatever, and say, well, here, look at the thousands of people who are making small contributions to Free Speech TV. Oh, hey, you've got something going there. You see how this works, right? So, of course, Free Speech TV needs the money. We had last Friday, I've been keeping you up to date on this. We're trying to hit $10,000 a day. We have done that one day. Last Friday, we were a little over 8,000. And the whole week before that, we never cracked 2,000. So we really need your help. Free Speech TV is way behind. I don't want this fundraiser to run longer than the last one we had to extend by a couple of days. Don't want that to happen. Please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution. And as I said, you can become a member of Free Speech TV for free, or you can become a member of Free Speech TV with a $5 gift, a $10 gift, any, $25. Say, hey, instead of going out to dinner tonight, or instead of even going to McDonald's tonight, let's just send that $5 or $10 to Free Speech TV. Give them a call now, 877-378-8669. Now, all that said, if you can afford a slightly larger gift at the $80 level, Free Speech TV will send you the Stampede stamp against Big Pharma, so you can stamp all your money, which means an average of 761 people will see every dollar bill that you stamp, and before the government recycles the currency, and the Free Speech TV water bottle. That's a good deal at $80. With a $120 gift, you get the anti-pharma stamp and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Mike Papantonio's book Law and Vengeance. That's at the $120. With a $240 gift, you get the water bottle and stamp. You get the book by Mike Papantonio, his brand new novel, Law and Vengeance, and Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free. With $360, you get all of those things, the look out for Big Pharma, Stampede, self-inking, stamp your dollars stamp, and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Law and Vengeance by Mike Papantonio, plus They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, plus Unequal Protection autographed by Thom Hartmann, because I wrote the book, and it's the book on corporate personhood, and relatively recently updated to include Citizens United and all that kind of stuff. With a $480 gift, which could be $40 a month for a year, you get all those books. You get the water bottle, the anti-pharma stamp, Law and Vengeance by Papantonio, They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, Unequal Protection by Thom Hartmann, and also Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean. We've had Nancy McLean on this program. Her book is an absolutely extraordinary book about, essentially the state of democracy in the United States right now. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm going to be living part-time in D.C. and part-time in Portland, Oregon. And so we'll have to figure out which city we're going to meet in, but we'll organize those things and we'll get together for a meal. So, or maybe someplace else. I mean, you know, we're setting up an event for Chicago for October, and we might be doing a little more traveling too now that this is the last week that I'm doing the TV show on RT. So after that, I'll have a lot more freedom to travel around, take this show on the road. I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot that we can do. So I might come to a town near you. But none of that's going to happen if we don't keep this show alive and this television network alive. And, you know, so far we've had some fundraisers where we keep it alive, and we've had some fundraisers where we actually raised a little extra and we were able to help bring a new program on the air or pick up a couple of new documentaries or something like that. It would be really nice to do that latter, although I realize that with all these natural disasters, and so many people have been calling in and saying, you know, my budget for this year was $100 for philanthropy, and I've already sent half of that to the Red Cross. So, you know, that kind of thing. I get that. And it's one of the reasons we made the gifts so book heavy, so many books, you know, so that you could use them as gifts. You know, this is a gift shopping time as well as anything else. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Is that right? Yeah, there we go. give us a call or freespeech.org. Thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back to the program. I'm very, very pleased to have in the studio with me Professor Peter Wadhams, Professor Emeritus of Ocean Physics, the head of the Polar Ocean Physics Group at the Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics at the University of Cambridge, UK, the author of the new book, A Farewell to Ice. May I wave that book around here? I don't think that we have a graphic of it. We probably should get one. But the book is A Farewell to Ice, A Report from the Arctic by Professor Peter Wadhams. And his website, cam.ac.uk, and you can tweet him at Peter Wadhams. It's Wadhams. Dr. Wadhams, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Or welcome back to the program. It's been a few years, or it's been a while since you've been on this radio show with us, but we're so pleased to have you. So your area of expertise is ice in general, the Arctic ice, Antarctic ice. Well, you know what?
Well, it's sea ice. That's ice which grows in the ocean, in the Arctic and the Antarctic. That's been my stamping ground.
So what is the situation right now with sea ice around the world? The title of Farewell to Ice, you know, sort of a variation on Hemingway or not?
Well, that's how I stole the title, but it is true. There is a disappearance of sea ice going on in the Arctic, a very rapid one. Certainly in the summer, we're going to see very soon a time when during the summer there's no ice at all. And even in the winter, the boundaries of the ice are shrinking quite fast. In the Antarctic, the ice is holding up at the moment, but it has started to retreat, even though until recently it was slightly expanding. Now it's shrinking again.
And then the third one that people usually mention in tones of, you know, awe or oh my God, is the Greenland ice sheet. Now, is that in your bailiwick? Is that because that's not technically sea ice; it's land ice, but
well, we do look at that because you can very accurately measure how rapidly the Greenland ice sheet is disappearing now, because there's a satellite called GRACE, which uses gravity to measure how much stuff is underneath it as it passes over the planet, and that means you can accurately measure how much ice is disappearing from Greenland, whereas in the past you had to stick stakes in the ice sheet and kind of guess. But now we know, and it's actually quite worrying, because not only is the Greenland ice sheet retreating, losing mass, but the Antarctic ice sheet has also started to lose mass, and that has a lot more to lose than the Greenland ice sheet.
So we're measuring this essentially with the gravitometers?
Yes, it's two gravity satellites flying very close together. So when they fly over the continent of Greenland, the first one is drawn, its orbit is slightly changed by coming across the big mass of ice underneath it, and that alters the distance between the satellites, which can be measured very accurately, and that's a measure then of how much mass there is underneath you.
That is remarkable.
It's a marvelous system, yes.
Yeah. So why should we care? What is the message that the average person needs to hear about why this loss of ice around the world is consequential?
Well, the biggest thing is the serious feedbacks that occur when the sea ice retreats. And these feedbacks are actually more serious than the retreat of the sea ice in the first place. One of them is the fact that the albedo of the Earth is reduced by the fact that you're replacing a lot of white stuff, that's the snow and ice, by dark stuff, which is open ocean or bare tundra.
Now, albedo is the reflectivity of the Earth that bounces the solar radiation back out into the universe rather than keeping it trapped here.
Yes, it's the fraction of radiation that's reflected immediately back into space. And one of the most powerful forces keeping us cool was actually the vast expanse of snow and ice. But not only is the sea ice retreating, but the snow line is also retreating, and both of those together are having an albedo effect, which is adding about 50% to the effect of global warming. In other words, if you add some CO2 to the atmosphere, it achieves 50% more effect than if the ice stayed put. So it's quite a big accelerator.
50%.
Yes.
In other words, if we thought that taking carbon dioxide from 350 parts per million to 400 parts per million would have X effect, it will actually have X times 2 effect because it will reduce the albedo, the reflectivity of the planet. Consequential. Is there a linear relationship between the two?
Well, it's about X times 1.5. In other words, if you add 2 molecules of CO2 to the atmosphere from your car exhaust,
right,
it's the same as adding 3 because of this extra albedo effect. And that's just the albedo effect alone. There are other feedbacks as well that accelerate global warming.
Well, I understand we talked to Jason Box a while ago, who does a lot of work on the Greenland ice sheet. And he was talking about how the white snow is not white anymore. It's covered with soot. Now, this is not a new thing. This comes along with the Industrial Revolution in the last 150 years or so, but it's gotten radically worse, apparently, in the last few decades. Is that having a measurable impact on all of this?
It is, yes, but it seems to be less than the direct impact of the ice and snow retreat. That seems to be the worst. And that's something that is, in theory, reversible. If the climate got cooler, we would get snow and ice back again. But the thing that seems to be irreversible is sea level rise, because that's really, most of it is now due to the melt of the Greenland ice sheet and the beginning of the Antarctic ice sheet. And that just goes ahead in one direction. It's not going to be reversible at all, because it's like turning a super tanker in a short distance. So that's going to mean that the acceleration of sea level rise that we're suffering from will just go on, and there's nothing much that we can do in reducing carbon emissions that's going to affect sea level rise. We can affect global temperatures, we can affect albedo change, but we can't really do anything about sea level rise.
So you're saying we've passed a tipping point on this?
Yes, we have, and we just have to accept the sea level rise.
When did we realize we had passed that tipping point?
Well, we meaning most of the people in the world, haven't realized it. I mean, it's still, you're not allowed to talk about sea level rise, I think, in the state of Carolina.
Or Florida.
Certainly not Florida. But it's still there, and it's it's accelerating in an exponential way. And of course, it was said about exponentials is that when you're on an exponential curve, you look behind you and it's flat and nothing has happened. You look ahead of you and it's incredibly steep. So that's what we're on. We're on a curve where we think that things are going gently because we look behind us at the past. But looking forward, things are going to be going much more rapidly.
Well, one of your colleagues, you and I met and talked on camera at Scripps Institute, maybe 3 months ago, thereabouts, for this documentary that we're doing with Leo DiCaprio and Lila Connors and whatnot. It's not all that public yet, so I can't get into more details than that. But you and I were talking, and I met one of your colleagues, and he was recently quoted, I believe it was the same fellow, as saying that he felt that there was a 1 in 20 chance that by the year 2100, the human race could be extinct as a result of global warming. That's pretty damn alarming. Is that one man's opinion, or is that a part of a growing consensus?
Well, I think at this moment it's one man's opinion, but to say 1 in 20 means somehow he's done some risk analysis. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the troubles with climate change is that nobody does risk analysis. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which supposedly represents and gives us information about how fast global change is happening, they don't express it in the form of risk factors. They just say there's a moderate probability that this will happen, there's a high probability that that will happen, but they don't assess the risk. And you can assess risk these days, but they just don't do it. For instance, one of the risks that I think is quite serious and hasn't been assessed is the risk that we'll have a big methane outbreak from offshore waters in the Arctic, because the offshore permafrost, which holds that methane back, is melting. Now, that risk is something that could, if it really happens, give us maybe half a degree or more of warming immediately. So we could have a sudden step upwards in our global warming that would be pretty catastrophic. But you have to look at what's the probability that this will happen, what are the processes going on, what is the risk involved, and if the risk is severe, then we should be worried about it. But nobody does that kind of risk analysis. I think that should be the way forward.
Is that because of the consensus process? Because if 100% of all the scientists don't agree, that they don't publish the results?
Yes, it's something like that. I mean, certainly the approach of IPCC is to sometimes to play down the seriousness of certain things like methane emissions because they feel people will be really worried about it and they haven't got all the facts clearly out right yet. But even without knowing all the facts, you can still do a risk analysis looking at the probability of different outcomes. And that would finger things that maybe we ought to be deeply concerned about, but at the moment we're not. And then one of those would be a methane outbreak.
What are some of the others?
Well, some of the others would be the risk of a kind of runaway, some kind of runaway warming, where the effect of the albedo change then has further knock-on effects on other changes in the atmosphere, and will give you something like not quite as bad as the planet Venus, but more of a runaway system whereby the feedbacks give you warming without you doing anything.
Right.
You can have
Stephen Hawking has specifically evoked Venus. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. We're talking with Dr. Peter Wadhams, Professor Peter Wadhams, Emeritus Professor of Ocean Physics, and the author of a new book, A Farewell to Ice.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And you can find A Farewell to Ice, a report from the Arctic, in all the usual fine bookstores all over the country. We'll be right back with more of Professor Wadhams. And welcome back. Professor Wadhams is still with us. You were talking about methane as one of the possible things that the IPCC is not seriously considering. Another, basically some sort of a black swan event, something that we haven't been able to quantify or anticipate, but that might start us rolling down. Do you see any good news?
Well, I'm trying to think of some. I guess in my book, I try to end on a positive note, and I think the good news, of course, is that we know what is causing climate change. It's not a Chinese hoax. It's carbon dioxide mainly that we're putting into the atmosphere. Now, if we're putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and causing climate change, we could, in principle, take it out. And that would cure climate change. It's the most immediate way of curing climate change and ensuring we have a future, is to find a way of taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and then we're sort of saved in but that can be done. There are methods being developed that run air, where you can run air over absorptive chemicals and produce and actually get rid of carbon dioxide. The trouble is it's very expensive and it's not worth doing at the present cost. But when you look at how, if you apply enough technology, costs come down, and think, for instance, about solar power, which is now come down in cost by 99% relative to 5 or 10 years ago, which means it's now becoming pretty much the cheapest form of energy. So if you can do that by putting in enough research and technology and taking it seriously enough, I'm sure that the cost of removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere will go down to the point where it's economically viable.
Be a Moore's law for decarbonization.
Well, yes, maybe not quite that extreme, but certainly it will come down. And calculations are, if it comes down to about $40 a tonne, then it's worth doing, because the detrimental effects of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere amount to about $40.
What is the expense right now? I know Lila shot some I think it was in Germany. It might have been in Finland or Denmark. They look like washing machines that were stacked above, 3 or 4 high and 20 long, and they were blowing air through and they're sucking out the CO2. What does that cost?
Well, at the moment it's about $100 a tonne, which is not that high. I mean, it's only 2.5 times what we need to get to. And so if we really took the problem seriously and made it the highest priority in research and development of anything, because it's the thing that's going to save the planet or not, then I'm sure we could get the cost down, because we could find new technologies, new chemical reactions that will be more efficient, and I'm sure the cost will come down. And when it does, of course, we then have to apply it. We have to, on a governmental scale, spend enough money to build enough systems to do it. Which is not, it's not a foregone conclusion that we do that, but we should, and if we do, we can save ourselves. We're not inevitably doomed because we fail to reduce our carbon emissions. We have the option of using our science and technology to take carbon out of the atmosphere.
Let us hope so. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Heather with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving of donations, volunteering, or even spreading the word, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to sustain for more than 20 years. Now, you can give to Free Speech TV through the Branch of Gratitude. This program is a sustainable way to give that reduces waste through paper mailing, postage, and staff hours. By choosing to participate in the Branch of Gratitude, you are joining hands with the socially conscious community and sending a message to the world that Free Speech TV is not only here to stay, it is here to thrive. Please call 877-378-8669 or go online to freespeech.org. Make a difference and join the Branch of Gratitude today.
Welcome back. Professor Peter Wadhams is here with us, Emeritus Professor of Ocean Physics, and former head of current head, correct me if I'm wrong, of the Polar Ocean Physics Group at the Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics at the University of Cambridge, UK, and author of the brilliant new book, A Farewell to Ice, A Report from the Arctic. cam.ac.uk is the website. You can tweet him at Peter Wadhams, Wadhams, and the book of Farewell to Ice. Dr. Wadhams, we hear all this conversation about cataclysmic, catastrophic, troublesome, just this whole spectrum of adjectives that describe what arguably could be anything from a more violent than normal thunderstorm to the death of all life on Earth, right? But very rarely are these terms associated with actual imaginable outcomes. And so I think they just kind of fly over the heads of most people. They're words that many scientists know exactly what they mean, but in general, they don't. Are we looking at levels at the current warming that we're experiencing right now? If we don't do something really substantial to make changes. And I realize that there are positive changes happening, but not at the rate that everybody says needs to happen. Are we looking at something that is a challenge for us? It's like the million farmers in Syria who lost their farms, and so they ended up in Damascus, which arguably led to that civil war. And in fact, I think you could argue that all across the Arab area, that whole arc, is experiencing global warming in ways that are destructive. We know the Bangladesh, there's several hundred million now climate refugees coming out of South Asia. These things, for a wealthy nation like the United States, we would say, it's an annoyance, but, we used to have famines in Ethiopia. We've always had these disasters. So is it in that category, or is it more in this is actually going to radically change the way you live your life, even if you live in the United States, even if you think you're insulated from this? Or is this like literally your grandchildren may not make it? I mean, what are the realities here, and how do we assign probabilities to these?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I think it's more a question of radical changes in the way we live our lives, combined with fairly disastrous consequences in poorer countries. And but it's a good point, because although many people prophesy that we're doomed if we continue along the present course and emit too much carbon dioxide, they don't say how we're doomed, and it's important to know what's going to happen first and where we can detect radical changes that are...
Are you able to stick around for another 10 minutes or so?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I would love to get that step-by-step scenario from you, if you may. We have to take a 6-minute break here. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
In my opinion, one of the most brilliant climate scientists on Earth is in the studio with me. I'm so happy to have Professor Peter Wadhams, his new book, A Farewell to Ice. We'll be back.
It's the third and hopefully final week for the Free Speech TV membership drive and fund drive. We have, levels of gifts at $120 and $240 and all that kind of stuff. But also just calling up and saying, hey, I'd like to be a member of Free Speech TV. They're not going to sell your name or mailing list or personal information. It's all kept very confidential. It's just for Free Speech TV. And in fact, it's not even a lot of information. I think it's just basically, how to send you the newsletter in email or by mail if you prefer. But the important thing is that Free Speech TV then can go to larger donors, and because there are some wealthy individuals who say, oh yeah, I'll kick in $5,000, but prove to me that you're really doing something worthwhile. I'm a busy guy, don't have time to watch it, whatever, and say, well, here, look at the thousands of people who are making small contributions to Free Speech TV. Oh, hey, you've got something going there. You see how this works, right? So, of course, Free Speech TV needs the money. We had last Friday, I've been keeping you up to date on this. We're trying to hit $10,000 a day. We have done that one day. Last Friday, we were a little over 8,000. And the whole week before that, we never cracked 2,000. So we really need your help. Free Speech TV is way behind. I don't want this fundraiser to run longer than the last one we had to extend by a couple of days. Don't want that to happen. Please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution. And as I said, you can become a member of Free Speech TV for free, or you can become a member of Free Speech TV with a $5 gift, a $10 gift, any, $25. Say, hey, instead of going out to dinner tonight, or instead of even going to McDonald's tonight, let's just send that $5 or $10 to Free Speech TV. Give them a call now, 877-378-8669. Now, all that said, if you can afford a slightly larger gift at the $80 level, Free Speech TV will send you the Stamp Stampede stamp against Big Pharma, so you can stamp all your money, which means an average of 761 people will see every dollar bill that you stamp, and before the government recycles the currency. And the Free Speech TV water bottle. That's a good deal at $80. With a $120 gift, you get the anti-pharma stamp and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Mike Papantonio's book, Law and Vengeance. That's at the $120. With a $240 gift, you get the water bottle and stamp. You get the book by Mike Papantonio, his brand new novel, Law and Vengeance, and Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free. With $360, you get all of those things, the look out for Big Pharma, Stamp Stampede, self-inking, stamp your dollars stamp, and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Law and Vengeance by Mike Papantonio, plus They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, plus Unequal Protection autographed by Thom Hartmann, because I wrote the book, and it's the book on corporate personhood, and relatively recently updated to include Citizens United and all that kind of stuff. With a $480 gift, which could be $40 a month for a year, you get all those books. You get the water bottle, the anti-pharma stamp, Law and Vengeance by Papantonio, They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, Unequal Protection by Thom Hartmann, and also Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean. We've had Nancy McLean on this program. Her book is an absolutely extraordinary book about, essentially the state of democracy in the United States right now. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm going to be living part-time in D.C. and part-time in Portland, Oregon. And so we'll have to figure out which city we're going to meet in, but we'll organize those things and we'll get together for a meal. So, or maybe someplace else. I mean, we're setting up an event for Chicago for October, and we might be doing a little more traveling too now that this is the last week that I'm doing the TV show on RT. So after that, I'll have a lot more freedom to travel around, take this show on the road. I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot that we can do. So I might come to a town near you. But none of that's going to happen if we don't keep this show alive and this television network alive. And so far, we've had some fundraisers where we keep it alive, and we've had some fundraisers where we actually raised a little extra and we were able to help bring a new program on the air or pick up a couple of new documentaries or something like that. It would be really nice to do that latter, although I realize that with all these natural disasters, and so many people have been calling in and saying, my budget for this year was $100 for philanthropy, and I've already sent half of that to the Red Cross. So, that kind of thing. I get that. And it's one of the reasons we made the gifts so book heavy, so many books, so that you could use them as gifts. This is a gift shopping time as well as anything else. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Is that right? Yeah, there we go. give us a call or freespeech.org. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. In the studio with us, Professor Peter Wadhams, the Emeritus Professor of Ocean Physics, head of the Polar Ocean Physics Group at the Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics at the University of Cambridge in the UK. And his new book, A Farewell to Ice, A Report from the Arctic, now available in paperback in the United States, just out. A really good read. Professor Wadhams, thank you for sticking around.
Thank you.
We were talking about this spectrum of things that we can expect in terms of the quality and nature of our lives and our children's lives and our grandchildren's lives. Can you make that real for us?
Yes, it's a question of how will things change. And it's rather like dealing with a great big ball of string and you're trying to find an end. Where do you start trying to untangle things? And I can think of a couple of ways in. The first would be if weather extremes are due to sea ice retreat and warming of the Arctic, as there's a lot of evidence that they are, then the weather extremes combined with general warming are causing a real problem for food production in mid-northern latitudes, which is where most food is grown. So we're going to have food shortages getting worse and worse, even as the world's population is increasing. Now, that has already had some major impacts. For instance, there's a lot of evidence that the Arab Spring was due to the fact, partly to the fact, that a lot of unemployed young people living in third world cities found that the cost of food was going way up and they couldn't afford to eat. And they don't just lie down and die, they revolt. So you can have the problem of weather extremes could lead to social unrest and warfare. So you can have famine and warfare arising. You can't predict what unrest and what warfare will happen, but something will, because if you're inflicting very high food prices on poor people, they don't just sit there and take it. Another way in is to think about, say, sea level rise. And if sea level rise goes at the rate that's predicted, which is now that it's going to be certainly a lot more than a metre this century, maybe 2 or 3 metres, that's going to make, within a few years or a few decades, a lot of cities uninhabitable, like Miami and a lot of Venice. A lot of cities are, most in fact, of the leading world cities are seaports, and that means they're very vulnerable. So as sea level rises, you could have a huge economic impact on the rich world because their prize cities with their highest priced real estate, being by the sea, are going to have to be abandoned. And of course, the effect on the third world is much worse because you have countries like Bangladesh, which are very low-lying, very densely populated. People can't move away from the coast because there's nowhere to move to. So you can expect a lot of additional flooding and huge amounts of loss of life in the third world. And in the first world, the rich world, you can expect economic crisis due to major cities having to be abandoned and being unable to afford to maintain the flood defences which are needed. So if you start with sea level rise, you end up with economic problems in the first world and catastrophic losses in the third world. If you start off with weather changes, you end up with a food crisis. If you start off with a methane outbreak, then you're going to get a rapid warming, and the impact of that will be on everything related to both to food production and to water supply, everything that you need to live. So predicting how the catastrophe or how the problem will unfold is really difficult, and I don't think people have done it. They tend to think we're doomed and not think, how is this going to work itself out? What's going to happen first? How can we try to minimise the impact by devoting our attention to the crisis that's going to hit first before the final one where everything goes?
Sure. Well, just to make it very local and use a couple of examples, we're here in Washington, D.C. We're about 100 miles, I think, from the sea. But there's a pretty big river, the Potomac, that heads right out there. I think we're at an elevation of around 200 to 300 feet above sea level. I have a home in Portland, Oregon, which is near the Columbia River, which is a couple hundred feet above sea level. It's 100 miles out to the ocean. Is at that level, are the inland cities upriver in the Mississippi, is it going to be a situation as the sea levels rise where the brackish areas extend, 5 miles, 10 miles, 30 miles up into the rivers, whereas right now they might just be a mile or so? Or is it that the resistance to the flow of water coming down into the ocean because the ocean levels are higher is going to slow the flow of these rivers and cause them to get larger and overflow their banks more often? How does this all work? I'm not familiar with the fluid hydraulics of it all.
Well, I think we don't really know about rivers. Because it depends whether rainfall is going to increase or decrease as climate changes, and it means in some places it's going to increase and some it's going to decrease. For instance, there's a big loss of water from the Tibetan Plateau because the glaciers there and the ice is melting earlier, and you're not getting water flowing through rivers there to irrigate land at a slightly lower level. Same in Bolivia. So there's where you depend on snow melt in spring, and there isn't the snow there to start with, then you have less river flow and you have a big problem for growing crops. So some places, the extra river flow is going to cause floods. Other places, you're not going to have enough river flow to give you the irrigation you need.
So it's impossible to generalize.
Yes, you can't generalize. You have to look globally on a sort of case-by-case basis, which is not really being done very much, and everybody's too concerned with Armageddon rather than how it's going to unfold.
Right, or up to something short of that. There was a lot of discussion around the year 2000. I think it was when Francis Fukuyama's book, The End of History and the Last Man, was published. And there were a number of books about kind of this is the end of civilization as we know it in a positive way. Like, we're going to take the next leap. This is the new, the information age is the equivalent of the Enlightenment of the 1700s. Some of it turned out to be just kind of fantastic thinking. Some of it was used to justify the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, oddly enough. I mean, these were also the neoconservative thinkers. If only we can make the whole world just like us, everything will be wonderful. But they dealt with civilizational changes. I think that you could argue that, ISIS taking over a city in Iraq is a radical civilizational change. I mean, it's the destruction of a civilization. It's the destruction of a culture. They may get it back. There may be pieces coming back, but we're talking fundamental core civilizational changes, the breakdown in Syria, for example. Are we looking at the destruction of what we call modern civilization worldwide?
Well, I think we are looking at a breakdown in many places. In fact, surprisingly, in places that we think of as being the most stable countries there are, like Britain and America, seem to be having a kind of a mental breakdowns at the moment. But there are there's breakdowns going on because of these additional environmental pressures on countries that are unable to withstand much of a change, and it will inevitably be a breakdown rather than a building up. I think there was Einstein said that he didn't know when he was asked about the Third World War. He said, well, he didn't know about that, but he knew that the Fourth World War would be fought with bows and arrows. That, in other words, that everything will break down, and nothing. You won't.
This was his response to the atomic bomb.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to what extent is climate change an atomic bomb for us? I mean, how inevitable, how unstoppable, how rapid can we start to see things? I mean, I remember just 10 years ago, people were talking about, you don't have to worry about this. It's going to be 2100. Now people are going, maybe 10 years from now. It's like, how rapidly are things going on?
Well, it's fast because everything is increasing exponentially. Even the amount of carbon dioxide we put into the atmosphere is increasing exponentially still, despite everything that all the politicians have said about reducing carbon emissions. We don't even just have to reduce them, we have to stop them because the carbon stays in the atmosphere so long, and there's such a flywheel effect that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now will keep building up temperatures even if we stop emitting. So we're stuck with exponential growth in carbon dioxide emissions, exponential growth in nearly everything, and those are things which, as you say, we don't notice until they hit us. That an exponential growth of anything doesn't look very much at first, but then it builds up quite suddenly, and suddenly you're kind of fleeing for your life.
Well, this is how cancers and infections work. You know, you get this what looks like linear growth, and then suddenly it goes exponential. It goes into that, you know, and that's that in biology they refer to it as amplification. You know, once the bacteria starts amplifying like that, the organism's doomed. I mean, that's, well, I'll have to leave it at that. Professor Peter Wadhams, you need to read the book. It's called A Farewell to Ice, A Report from the Arctic. Professor Peter Wadhams, W-A-D-H-A-M-S. You can tweet him at Peter Wadhams. The website cam.ac.uk. Professor, thank you. Great having you. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be back with your calls. We're also going to check in with Talk Media News in about 4 minutes, find out what's going on in the world today. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And let's see here. John in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Hey, John, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Well, your conversation with Dr. Wadhams is a bit depressing, but I do think that, you know, intellectual honesty and morality and ethics are connected, and I see that that is at the root of the problem in our politics today. I don't, the people who define, you know, religious ethics and morality don't even have a clue. I think that they are totally bought out. I'm talking about the religious so-called right. And, you know, when people can't see anymore, I mean, I can't really understand life, and they're so overcome by just absolute, you know, just a barrage of lies and propaganda. You know, it's kind of dismal, and I think that we need to attack that. I think that you have attacked that problem, and I think that that really is at the heart of what's going on, because there is a direct connection between what we're doing to the environment. We're not good stewards of the environment. They can read encyclicals about it from different bishops in the Episcopal Church or in the Church of England, in the Orthodox Church. The Patriarch of Constantinople comes to mind, also the Pope. You know, there just is an attack, and I think the attack is there's a lack of compassion, a lack of love, a lack of moral honesty. You know, the arrogance of some people, like, for instance, Steve Bannon, who says he's at war with us. You know, he's at war with people who believe in regulation. These regulations, people didn't just pull out of their backside and say, oh, yeah, let's make it really difficult for the drug industry. Let's, you know, protect people and make sure that there's purity in drugs and food. Oh, yeah, well, maybe we shouldn't do a nuclear war, because the fallout, there is no safe level of ionizing radiation. At one point in your life, you can be exposed to a chest X-ray or a dental X-ray, and 20 years later develop cancer. This is a fact. There are facts out there, and it depends on people who have moral and, I would say, intellectual honesty. The morality doesn't have to come from a church or anything. You can just be a humanist and be quite moral and see the connection between morality, ethics, and politics and what is going on, in our society right now, culturally, politically, and, economically. And I think you blame, many times I hear you blame, neoliberalism and the current, economic, I would say religion that we all suffer under. But, we need to just keep at it. But we need to also attack, how crummy they are. These people are not nice people. They are morally bankrupt. And, yes.
Here's the ultimate irony, John, is that Trump in his whole, going after the NFL players is presenting this as a moral argument. Meanwhile, Tom Price and all his other buddies are destroying our planet, which is also a moral argument. John, thanks for the call. Welcome back. Let's check in with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world today. This report brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Ellen Ratner's new book, Loving What You Do. And Ellen, it was wonderful to see you over the weekend at our daughter's wedding.
It was amazing to see you and at your daughter's wedding, and I was so complimented to be invited, so thank you. But I also want to just speak to the last caller. I've been to Antarctica, and I've seen the calving of the ice. You can't deny it if you go there. You can't deny what is going on.
Yeah.
It's just so obvious.
Yep.
So, okay. Anthony Weiner, former congressman from Brooklyn, gets 21 months from a judge today. This is for his sex texting. He officially has joined the Ellen's Felons Club.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Now, I was against NAFTA from the beginning. I called it NAFTA Shafta, but Tom Donahue of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce does not want NAFTA changed, despite the fact that Donald Trump says he wants to change it, wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today. Democratic National Committee had a conference call on Latinos and Trump and said that even the pro-Trump Latinos, about half of them are now turning against him because of what he has done with both the DACA and also, of course, with the statues and that kind of thing that happened in Charlottesville. So that is going on. North Korea says the president has declared war by his statements, and they said that they are going to shoot down things that come from the United States, even if they are not over North Korea.
This could be a problem.
Really quite amazing.
This could be a problem. That's Archduke Ferdinand. The assassination of Archduke Ferdinand was not, a state declaring war on another state, and yet it started World War I.
Exactly, in Sarajevo. So,
Amazing.
Exactly. This could really be a big problem, as we know. Also, tonight, there's going to be a tax cut dinner at the White House, and there is a liberal group called Not One Penny, in addition to other liberal groups, and they want the White House to release who is coming to the tax dinner tonight.
Oh, I'm guessing they were not invited.
I don't think that. Neither were you or I.
Exactly, yeah. It's it's just like the so-called healthcare meetings. It's only Republicans, and the room is locked, and the doors are closed, and Republicans and lobbyists and bigwigs, fat cats from the corporations. That's about it. Amazing.
Right. Now, this is very interesting. On October 3rd, of course, the Supreme Court session starts on October 1st. But on October 3rd, there's going to be a hearing on voting registration. Now, Ohio, the great state of Ohio, purged some of its voter rolls. So if you don't vote in a certain number of elections, or even one election, it depends on, of course, the state and where it is, they can purge you from the voter rolls. Well, now, I vote in New York, and sometimes I don't vote in the smaller elections. I do vote in the larger elections. But does that mean that I'm going to be purged from the voter rolls?
Yes.
And so now there is an amicus brief that has been on this issue and says you just can't purge somebody because they don't vote in one or two elections.
Right. Yeah, this whole thing is... this is just Jim Crow. It's just that simple. There's nothing more or less to it. It's about preventing poor people from voting, young people from voting, elderly people from voting, and people of color from voting. It's just that simple. And they've come up with this whole canard, this whole nonsense story about the so-called, illegal voter, the so-called, vote thief or whatever, which doesn't exist. But the real election tampering that's going on, you've got 20-some-odd states where their voting systems are so insecure that, whether it's a Russian hacker or whether it's somebody from the RNC.
That's right. And that's what is going on. It isn't that somebody like you or me doesn't go and vote in some small election and then we are somehow purged from the voting rolls because we didn't vote. I mean, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah. No, it's these guys are, they're giving us all these nonsense excuses to simply do voter suppression. Vote theft. That's what they're doing. They're stealing our votes. It's that simple.
Now, this is very interesting. Louis Gohmert, as his name, he's a Republican from Texas. He is a congressman, he's not a senator. He said that Senator McCain should be recalled. And he is basically saying, well, he should recover from his cancer treatment, and he's undergoing stress, and we should be compassionate and recall him and then vote for somebody that is going to vote for this health care bill.
Right, because Louis Gohmert doesn't want anybody to have health insurance if they're not a billionaire.
Of course not. He said nothing inhibits recovery like stress. He said on Fox and Friends, I think Arizona could help him and us. Recall him, let him fight successfully this terrible cancer, and let's get somebody in here who will keep the word he gave last year.
Jeez. That's terrible.
Can you imagine? Okay. Among black women, HIV death rate has fallen dramatically for women. Among black women aged 45 to 54, the death rate for HIV has decreased by 60%. From 28.4 persons per 100,000 to 11.5 people in 2006.
Is this reflective of a decrease in the infection rate or the efficacy of the new pharmaceuticals?
Well, we're not sure, but certainly the infection rate has gone down. Now, whether that is because of public health issues, saying that people should use condoms, because of African-American women insisting that people use condoms, we don't really know, but we do know that that is very, very important at this
Good sign.
point. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Now, also on the Graham-Cassidy bill, as you know, they are trying now to buy off the senator from Alaska and from Maine, two women senators. Of course, they're still very upset about the fact that somehow not only are their states going to be affected, but Planned Parenthood is totally X'd out of this bill. And, of course, every senator wants to be reelected, so this may affect their reelection, and that's what they are banking on. That is what the Republicans are banking on.
Yeah. This is going to be interesting, and it's not just going to be interesting to see how this plays out this week in terms of the vote, or even next January when they can start the reconciliation process all over again. It's going to be real interesting to see how it plays out in November of next year. Ellen Ratner with Talk Media News.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Ellen. Great talking with you. It was great seeing you this weekend. We'll be back.
Thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com. It's the third and hopefully final week for the Free Speech TV membership drive and fund drive. We have, levels of gifts at $120 and $240 and all that kind of stuff. But also, just calling up and saying, hey, I'd like to be a member of Free Speech TV. They're not going to sell your name or mailing list or personal information. It's all kept very confidential. It's just for Free Speech TV. And in fact, it's not even a lot of information. I think it's just basically, how to send you the newsletter in email or by mail if you prefer. But the important thing is that Free Speech TV then can go to larger donors, and because there are some wealthy individuals who say, well, yeah, I'll kick in $5,000, but prove to me that you're really doing something worthwhile. I'm a busy guy, don't have time to watch it, whatever, and say, well, here, look at the thousands of people who are making small contributions to Free Speech TV. Oh, hey, you've got something going there. You see how this works, right? So, of course, Free Speech TV needs the money. We had last Friday, I've been keeping you up to date on this. We're trying to hit $10,000 a day. We have done that one day. Last Friday, we were a little over 8,000. And the whole week before that, we never cracked 2,000. So we really need your help. Free Speech TV is way behind. I don't want this fundraiser to run longer than the last one we had to extend by a couple of days. Don't want that to happen. Please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution. And as I said, you can become a member of Free Speech TV for free, or you can become a member of Free Speech TV with a $5 gift, a $10 gift, any, $25. Say, hey, instead of going out to dinner tonight, or instead of even going to McDonald's tonight, let's just send that $5 or $10 to Free Speech TV. Give them a call now, 877-378-8669. Now, all that said, if you can afford a slightly larger gift at the $80 level, Free Speech TV will send you the Stamp Stampede stamp against Big Pharma, so you can stamp all your money, which means an average of 761 people will see every dollar bill that you stamp, and before the government recycles the currency, and the Free Speech TV water bottle. That's a good deal at $80. With a $120 gift, you get the anti-pharma stamp and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Mike Papantonio's book Law and Vengeance. That's at the $120. With a $240 gift, you get the water bottle and stamp. You get the book by Mike Papantonio, his brand new novel, Law and Vengeance, and Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free. With $360, you get all of those things, the look out for Big Pharma, Stamp Stampede, self-inking, stamp your dollars stamp, and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Law and Vengeance by Mike Papantonio, plus They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, plus Unequal Protection autographed by Thom Hartmann, because I wrote the book, and it's the book on corporate personhood, and relatively recently updated to include Citizens United and all that kind of stuff. With a $480 gift, which could be $40 a month for a year, you get all those books. You get the water bottle, the anti-pharma stamp, Law and Vengeance by Papantonio, They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, Unequal Protection by Thom Hartmann, and also Democracy in Chains by Nancy MacLean.
we've had Nancy McLean on this program. Her book is an absolutely extraordinary book about, essentially the state of democracy in the United States right now. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm going to be living part-time in D.C. and part-time in Portland, Oregon. And so we'll have to figure out which city we're going to meet in, but we'll organize those things and we'll get together for a meal. So, or maybe someplace else. I mean, we're setting up an event for Chicago for October, and we might be doing a little more traveling too now that this is the last week that I'm doing the TV show on RT. So after that, I'll have a lot more freedom to travel around, take this show on the road. I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot that we can do. So I might come to a town near you. But none of that's going to happen if we don't keep this show alive and this television network alive. And so far, we've had some fundraisers where we keep it alive, and we've had some fundraisers where we actually raised a little extra, and we were able to help bring a new program on the air or pick up a couple of new documentaries or something like that. It would be really nice to do that latter, although I realize that with all these natural disasters, and so many people have been calling in and saying, my budget for this year was $100 for philanthropy, and I've already sent half of that to the Red Cross. So, that kind of thing. I get that. And that's one of the reasons we made the gifts so book heavy, so many books, so that you could use them as gifts. This is a gift shopping time as well as anything else. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Is that right? Yeah, there we go. give us a call or freespeech.org. Thank you so much.
Works. And
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And on the line with us is Rick Unger. Rick is the co-host of Steele and Unger on weeknights, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on SiriusXM's POTUS Channel 124. Their website, steeleandunger.com. You can tweet Rick at Rick Unger, RICKUNGAR. Rick, welcome to the program.
How are you, Tom?
I'm
been
well.
A while.
Thank you I thank you for having me on your show a while ago, and it's great to have you on mine. And
pleasure.
So you wrote this amazing piece. A cancer patient desperately needs a stem cell transplant, but the U.S. won't grant the donor a visa. Tell me this story.
It's a terrible story. It really is. And to be fair, I didn't write the story. I just picked it up on the radio. Okay. But the story really got my attention. You have a woman, 61 years old, lives in Southern California, and was diagnosed with a particularly bad form of leukemia. The only chance that this woman has is to receive a stem cell transplant. Stem cell transplants are tricky. You have to find as close to a perfect match as you can, and she did. Her sister, who lives in Vietnam. This woman is emigrated to the U.S. with her husband. He had fought alongside the Americans during the Vietnam War, and as part of a special program, they were allowed to come live here. So they contact the sister, and they raise the money to fly her over. This is all great news until the sister shows up at the U.S. Embassy in Ho Chi Minh City, where she is told not once but 3 times that the government is not sufficiently convinced that she will return to her home country after this procedure. Now, never mind that she has a 5-year-old daughter to return to. Never mind that she operates businesses in Vietnam. No, we don't trust that you'll come back. Therefore, her sister here in the United States cannot get the stem cell transplant. This is the heart and soul of the story.
Wow. This is extraordinary.
People like you and I, who I think I can include you, who like to believe that our government can really be a force for good, this really kind of takes the stuffings out of that. There is no reason. I've done the research now. There is no reason that this woman has done anything in her past, the sister, that would suggest that, yes, she's going to come to the U.S., participate in one of the most painful surgeries you can participate in, and then go frolicking in the United States as her 5-year-old daughter stays behind. Right. It's absurd. It's what the government says for certain countries where we'd really rather not grant visas, and it means somebody's going to die. I had an interesting experience. It was the first time actually with U.S. Customs. I've been I've gotten song and dances from customs in other countries. For 30 years, I did international relief work, and I've flown into countries that were on the edge of not even being countries at the time. But I was flying back from Germany and had to go through, customs, and I don't want to go into the whole detail thing, and this is not a poor me story, but the guy lied to me. He said, it looks to me like our machine is broken. So I need you to follow this line. And he was all real nice and friendly, but the machine wasn't accepting my passport. And it was probably just a random thing, In fact, that's what the second person told me. But I had a 2-hour connection from a flight arriving from Frankfurt and then leaving for Portland to go out to the West Coast for my daughter's wedding. And I ended up in the private place with the strip search and the tear your bag apart and the 300 questions. And then even though I had the all the global pat crossing, all that junk stuff, to get you through fast, ended up in the 2-hour-long line because, all your security stuff is gone. And none of that bothers me if it's just done up front. If the guy had just said to me right off the bat, okay, you've been flagged as one of those random guys. That's happened to me a dozen times. But instead, he gave me this song and dance, and it's bothered me. It's been a week, and it's been bothering me that an official representative of my government lied to me, and I wonder if there's been just a general coarsening of authority figures in the United States since the guy who is our president talked about how he likes to see people beat up in rallies. He would rather see football more violent, after we're seeing this horrible epidemic of concussive brain injury, destructive brain injury. Is there, and of course, obviously, what we saw in Charlottesville and there are days when it seems to me like America is waking up and getting its act together. The counter protests to Charlottesville, the protests to the inauguration. These were encouraging to me. But there are times also when I just get this feeling like, particularly having read Milton Mayer's book back in the 50s when he went to Germany and interviewed 10 good Germans who had nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with the Nazis. They were just there, to a professor, a baker, a bricklayer. I get this feeling that our country is changing in ways that, sort of like the frog in the boiling pot, that we're not even noticing. Yeah, I think that's true. And I would also add, and by the way, congratulations, your daughter got married this weekend.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
I got to get that in there. It's a very big deal. I've been there. It's awesome. Yeah. The next part's even better when you get grandkids. You'll love it.
Yeah. They're adopted.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. There's a bigger issue here. There really is. I mean, at least I think it is. It's not just that you're being lied to. It's mediocrity. You can envision what's happening here. You've got some middle-level government bureaucrats sitting in the embassy in Ho Chi Minh City who's been told, we really don't want people from China. We don't want people from Vietnam. There are a few countries that while we don't have any laws prohibiting it, there are policies of, we'd rather not because they have a tendency of staying and not coming back. So he is just checking things off. I know this because we invited a State Department rep to come on the show to talk about this. They declined sending us a copy of the rules when you can't prove that you're going to return. It's just, it's mediocrity in government. The problem is like you're talking about government officials who just lie to you. And I was going to say that gentleman has the example of much higher ups in government than him who like to lie on a.
Well, that's my point. Has a new zeitgeist emerged with the election of Trump?
But mediocrity, I suspect, maybe has always been there. This is just, I can't deal with this. I don't understand that anybody out there representing our government in the Foreign Service or otherwise doesn't realize that when you deny an American. And by the way, when these people emigrated here from from Vietnam, they became American citizens. When you deny an American the right to possibly have their lives saved. She's got children. She has one children who is especially challenged, who she still takes care of despite being 62 years old. What does it say about our country when you will not allow her sister to travel here? I have to tell you, I personally, people that might surprise you who are very much not of our political ilk have volunteered money to pay for whatever security is necessary to stay on top of this woman while she's in the United States if our government is so fearful she might disappear. Doesn't make a difference. The government doesn't care, and that's just unbelievable.
Well, it's the peddling of fear. I mean, this is what we're seeing is the dreadful hate and fear, this way of dividing people. And I would say that right at the top of the list right now is this whole thing around the NFL and largely players of color going to their knee to protest institutional racism in the United States and the whole dimension of stuff associated with that. And Donald Trump trying to turn it into a Nixon-esque, the great white silent majority doesn't approve.
My favorite part of that story now is turning out to be that before 2009, players never came out for the national anthem. The only reason they started coming out in 2009 was because the United States government paid them.
Right, 700
paid the
grand.
NFL.
700 grand,
it was
Roger
more,
Goodell.
Yes, but millions. And then I think the National Guard has stepped in the past couple of years and paid another $6 million. It was paid for patriotism. Yeah. And then you see these Americans who, if an NFL player beats up a woman, okay, I'm still watching the game. All these things that have happened with players in the NFL, nobody cares. But God forbid they should protest by taking a knee, as Martin Luther King used to do. Then, we need to get rid of professional football. This is unacceptable. This is nuts.
Yeah, it really and truly is. And the thing that I find so tragic, now somebody called me and said that ESPN this morning did a really good
It did, Stephen Smith.
Yeah, a good half-hour dig into why they're behaving the way they are, why this particular behavior. But I admit I've been traveling like crazy the last week, so most of the media I've been consuming has been online rather than on television. But what I have seen on television has been almost completely sanitized of any discussion of institutional racism in the United States.
It has nothing to do with what Colin Kaepernick's original protest was about.
Right.
Nothing whatsoever.
Right. And the continuing protest is about, Frank.
Yeah. It has just nothing to do with it. And, unfortunately, there are too many people in this country who don't care. I'll tell you what does bother me a lot are those people saying, you are protesting what our veterans went and fought and died for. Every single veteran comment I am seeing, every veteran I speak to, and I speak to a lot of them, they don't agree with that at all. They're saying that's exactly why we went and fought, so that people could express their point of view that way. They need to stop co-opting these people. And this is just Trump diverting from, he's going to lose a political race tomorrow. He's just deflecting.
Yeah, I think so, but he's doing it in a way that's actually destructive to our nation, and that troubles me incredibly. Rick Unger, one of the great hosts, progressive talk show hosts in America. SteeleandUnger.com is the website. You can see him. You can hear him on. Hang on just a second. I'll get this right, Rick.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Weeknights, 6 to 9 Eastern Time on SiriusXM's POTUS Channel 124. The website, Steele and Unger. You can tweet him at Rick Unger, UNGAR. Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, man.
Good talking. And welcome back. Renee in DeSoto, Texas. Hey, Renee, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I just wanted to say, this is my first time ever calling a talk show, so I'm a little nervous. But I just wanted to say about the health care reform that I think is just very sad that they're spending more time dilly-dallying with the necessary junk instead of really sitting down and spending time and looking at this bill and saying, let's put forth something that matters for everybody. I am fortunate and unfortunate to be a person that is currently using Medicare as primary and Medicaid secondary in my state. And if it was not for that, I have a very active illness of multiple sclerosis and lupus. It's taken my sight, it's taken my ability to walk, it's taken a lot of things from my life and my family's life. However, it has not taken my desire to push forth and push on. I love this country. I love the fact that I was born here, raised here, and have the opportunities that I have, and my children have had the opportunities that they have. And I've worked all of my life up until the point of taking sick. And I say unfortunate that I have the opportunity to use services like the Medicaid transportation service to get to doctor's appointments when I can't get another family member or someone to help me to get there. And in doing so, I need that assistance. But if they look at this medical reform and they just overlooked everything about what matters to people, the little things as well as the big things, they may figure my thing is a little thing and it doesn't really matter. But for me, it does.
Renee, there's a fundamental philosophical difference here, and this is what almost nobody is talking about, and that is that there are essentially two factions in the Republican Party that are both working against us. You've got the David Koch libertarian factor, and when he ran for vice president in 1980, he ran on a platform that the federal government and state governments should have, but specifically the federal government, he was running for vice president, should have zero involvement in the physical health, or mental health for that matter, of American citizens. That should purely be something between people who, presumably like David Koch inherited a fortune from his daddy, people who, and their doctors, right? So they just, get rid of all that. There's no reason in his mind for the government to be involved in healthcare. So you've got that faction. I call them the crazy libertarians. Mm-hmm. Then you've got they refer to themselves as the Main Street faction. And they also don't give a rat's ass about the average person. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about, how our lives are going or anything like that. They don't view their mission as being, to help improve the quality of our lives or even keep us alive. They view their mission as maximizing profits for their shareholders. Mm-hmm. And maximizing profits for their shareholders means bringing back things like we can kick you off with pre-existing conditions or jack up the prices. We can do away with that transportation you're using, things like that, because it's more profitable. There is no faction, to the best of my knowledge, in the Republican Party that is actually concerned about the people themselves, which is just an absolute tragedy. Renee, thank you for sharing your story. I'm sorry we're out of time, but it's great to hear from you. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Hi there, I'm Marie with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving donations, volunteering, or spreading the word about Free Speech TV, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to exist. And for that, I want to say thank you. Now you can give to the network powered by the people by donating an unwanted or used vehicle through our Vehicles of Change program. If you have an old car, RV, or even a motorcycle, Free Speech TV can use it to grow and thrive. You can make a bigger difference in supporting Free Speech TV by giving an old car. It's a great way to support the network without having to dig into your bank account. Just call 877-378-8669 and ask for more information about Vehicles of Change. Again, the number to call is 877-378-8669. If it has a VIN, we'll take it in. Thank you.
With you, and yeah, Dave in Federal Way, Washington. Dave, it looks like you're right on the topic. Rick and I were talking about the nature of our society. You're on the air.
Yeah, Tom. Hey, I just wanted to say real quick that my second tour of Iraq, I was at Cobb Spiker, and we had a war crime that was committed there, and 3 guys went to prison. And our commander at the time, I knew our commander, our brigade commander. I mean, I saw the guy every day.
Mm-hmm.
And he created an environment that was beyond the pale. I mean, they didn't even know him, but acting under his, what they thought he would want, they killed 3 prisoners. All right. And like I said, they're in prison for the rest of their lives. So my point is, and I saw him, throw them under the bus, literally. I mean, he said that they acted totally on their own and they disgraced the unit, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
And, and this kind of relates to Donald Trump. I mean, we got to keep in mind that, like I keep hearing this thing about the Powell Doctrine. If you break it, you bought it. Well, that's not really the Powell Doctrine. That's just the way it works in international norms. I mean, if you blow a bunch of stuff up or kill a bunch of people, well, I mean, that's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And
Powell, by the way, Powell referred to it as the Pottery Barn rules, just FYI. Because Pottery Barn is this, chain of gift shops that have little signs that say if you break it, you own it. Or you bought it, I guess.
Right, and I don't mean to sound like, some snotty international lawyer. I'm not, okay? I'm just trying to I mean, basically, if you, there is also the thought that, I mean, who's going to enforce, anything on the United States of America? We're the last remaining superpower.
Yeah.
Okay, there is that school of
For the
thought.
moment.
But I'm sorry?
I said for the moment. We're the last remaining superpower for the moment. China's growing fast.
Well, yeah, and you just got to remember that, it's just really just common sense. I mean, are you going to threaten to utterly destroy North Korea, okay, and then criticize the allies that we will almost certainly ask to help rebuild it? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Or, for that matter, the allies on whose behalf we're attacking North Korea to defend.
Yeah. I mean, the simple short thing is there is no escaping responsibility. All right, I mean, you can theorize that there is, but I've never seen it. There's no escaping personal responsibility. There just isn't.
Or societal responsibility. I mean, we got away with slavery for a long time. We committed a mass genocide against Native Americans. We committed cultural genocide against indigenous people all across North America, all across Central and South America, frankly, all across Europe. And I would say some of that is coming home to roost.
Yeah, and just like those guys, I mean, the commander did not specifically say murder those specific individuals.
Right.
So they could not escape their personal responsibility. And it didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter what mine or anybody else's impression of the command environment was.
Yeah,
okay,
it's a tough one. War is hell. I realize it's a cliche, but it's also true. Dave, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Thanks for listening to Sirius XM. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with more of the news of the day, your calls, and my thoughts on all of the above right after this.
It's the third and hopefully final week for the Free Speech TV membership drive and fund drive. We have, levels of gifts at $120 and $240 and all that kind of stuff. But also just calling up and saying, hey, I'd like to be a member of Free Speech TV. They're not going to sell your name or mailing list or personal information. It's all kept very confidential. It's just for Free Speech TV. And in fact, it's not even a lot of information. I think it's just basically, how to send you the newsletter in email. or by mail if you prefer. But the important thing is that Free Speech TV then can go to larger donors, and because there are some wealthy individuals who say, well, yeah, I'll kick in $5,000, but prove to me that you're really doing something worthwhile. I'm a busy guy, don't have time to watch it, whatever, and say, well, here, look at the thousands of people who are making small contributions to Free Speech TV. Oh, hey, you've got something going there. You see how this works, right? So, of course, Free Speech TV needs the money. We had last Friday, I've been keeping you up to date on this. We're trying to hit $10,000 a day. We have done that one day. Last Friday, we were a little over 8,000. And the whole week before that, we never cracked 2,000. So we really need your help. Free Speech TV is way behind. I don't want this fundraiser to run longer than the last one we had to extend by a couple of days. Don't want that to happen. Please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution. And as I said, you can become a member of Free Speech TV for free, or you can become a member of Free Speech TV with a $5 gift, a $10 gift, any, $25. Say, hey, instead of going out to dinner tonight, or instead of even going to McDonald's tonight, let's just send that $5 or $10 to Free Speech TV. Give them a call now, 877-378-8669. Now, all that said, if you can afford a slightly larger gift at the $80 level, Free Speech TV will send you the Stamp Stampede stamp against Big Pharma, so you can stamp all your money, which means an average of 761 people will see every dollar bill that you stamp, and before the government recycles the currency. And the Free Speech TV water bottle. That's a good deal at $80. With a $120 gift, you get the anti-pharma stamp and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Mike Papantonio's book, Law and Vengeance. That's at the $120. With a $240 gift, you get the water bottle and stamp. You get the book by Mike Papantonio, his brand new novel, Law and Vengeance, and Milton Mayer's book, They Thought They Were Free. With $360, you get all of those things, the look out for Big Pharma, Stamp Stampede, self-inking, stamp your dollars stamp, and the Free Speech TV water bottle, plus Law and Vengeance by Mike Papantonio, plus They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, plus Unequal Protection autographed by Thom Hartmann, because I wrote the book, and it's the book on corporate personhood, and relatively recently updated to include Citizens United and all that kind of stuff. With a $480 gift, which could be $40 a month for a year, you get all those books. You get the water bottle, the anti-pharma stamp, Law and Vengeance by Papantonio, They Thought They Were Free by Milton Mayer, Unequal Protection by Thom Hartmann, and also Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean. We've had Nancy McLean on this program. Her book is an absolutely extraordinary book about, essentially the state of democracy in the United States right now. And with a $1,000 gift, I'm going to be living part-time in D.C. and part-time in Portland, Oregon. And so we'll have to figure out which city we're going to meet in, but we'll organize those things and we'll get together for a meal. So, or maybe someplace else. I mean, we're setting up an event for Chicago for October, and we might be doing a little more traveling too now that this is the last week that I'm doing the TV show on RT. So after that, I'll have a lot more freedom to travel around, take this show on the road. I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot that we can do. So I might come to a town near you. But none of that's going to happen if we don't keep this show alive and this television network alive. And so far, we've had some fundraisers where we keep it alive, and we've had some fundraisers where we actually raised a little extra and we were able to help bring a new program on the air or pick up a couple of new documentaries or something like that. It would be really nice to do that latter, although I realize that with all these natural disasters, and so many people have been calling in and saying, my budget for this year was $100 for philanthropy, and I've already sent half of that to the Red Cross. So, that kind of thing. I get that. And that's one of the reasons we made the gifts so book heavy, so many books, so that you could use them as gifts. This is a gift shopping time as well as anything else. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Is that right? Yeah, there we go. give us a call or freespeech.org. Thank you so much.
Hey, want to hear that clip again? Subscribe to the Thom Hartmann Program on YouTube to see all your favorite show highlights. All the important stories we cover and the issues we care about are at HartmannReport.com. Members of our community can comment and join the conversation.
Interesting. Welcome back, by the way. And Hartmann Report is also a free podcast now on iTunes. Frank Thorpe tweets, "This is wild. Hundreds of people are in line for the Graham Cassidy hearing at 2 p.m. That would be a half hour ago. It snakes from the Dirksen Senate office building into the Hart building." These are the two buildings that the senators have. This is going to be very entertaining. I mean, Bill Cassidy has repeatedly lied on national television. Jimmy Kimmel was having none of it, but most of the other people who have to have politicians in order to have a political talk show are willing to let these guys lie and not call them out on it. But here, this is from Alice Holstein, said, the Democrats asked for a bigger room for the Graham Cassidy hearing. Republicans refused. There are hundreds in line and just a couple dozen seats. Right. And as Ellen pointed out, Louis Gohmert says we should let John McCain retire and fight his cancer because he doesn't want to vote for stripping health care from 30 million people and giving giant tax breaks to billionaires. Gee, how unusual. Patty in Austin, Texas. Hey, Patty. Alvin, Texas. Excuse me. Hey, Patty. What's up?
I'll be right back. Hello. Hi.
Hey,
yes,
Patty.
I wanted to talk to you about what I'm seeing on social media. Like I get your daily news from Yahoo and things of that nature. And what I see of the people protesting against the players kneeling, idiots, what do they call them when they want to say that they're hoods? That's not the right word. They said these guys couldn't make a living on a minimum wage job if it wasn't for our sports, and they need to go back to the hood. Thugs, they call them.
Oh, that's total racist. I mean, that's not even dog whistle.
It's total. It's so blatantly, completely, totally racist. It's just unbelievable. And they're doing this in public social media, and who cares?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was talking with Rick Unger about. It really seems to me, and I've been talking about this for years on this program about what happened in the 30s in Germany and throughout the late 20s, early 30s in Japan, where an authoritarian cult came to power, and that authoritarian cult changed the nature of the government and of the country and ultimately of the people. And yet all the forms and substance were all the same. The theaters were still there, and people still went to the movies, and people still went out for dinner, and there were, but suddenly the country wasn't a happy place anymore. It was a fearful place, and I think that this is what Trump has brought us, and it's really tragic. Ben Franklin was right: a fish rots from the head down, and at least it's a great metaphor, a great political metaphor. And I think that that's what's going on. Patty, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Great contribution. Thank you for what you had to say. Tony in Los Angeles. Hey, Tony, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I was just calling to say, for all these people saying how black people aren't patriotic, first of all, without 500 years of free labor, we wouldn't be a damn superpower.
Yep.
Next of all, the first person to die in the American Revolution was Crispus Attucks, a black man.
Yep.
Next of all, every black man has fought in every war, and many of them were lynched in their uniforms when they came home.
Yep.
So I really am about a little sick and damn tired of hearing about somebody being not patriotic, because without black people, there would be no country. And if all those brothers quit playing football, who's going to play it?
Yeah. I'm with you on all points, Tony. Absolutely with you. And just the sick hypocrisy of it that Trump is making these blatant racist dog whistle calls and not being explicitly called out for it more aggressively is shocking to me.
Tony, thank you for the call. Very well said. Lisa in San Francisco. Hey, Lisa, what's up?
That's because he's so simple-minded that he thinks patriotism can be shown that simply. That's all it means.
Yes, patriotism is not display, it's behavior.
Exactly. But to him, it's all surface anyway.
Yeah.
It's, what I called for was what Rick Unger said. It's funny when he said that. Well, it's not funny, but my husband had lung cancer several years ago, and his sister applied for a visa to come see him because he was very sick. And they told her the same thing, that she might stay. And she also had 2 children that she was leaving in Istanbul before she would come to visit her brother who was dying of cancer. And they refused her a visa and told her the same thing, that they thought she might stay in the U.S., and that's why they refused it.
Amazing. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
We have become so fearful since 9/11. And it's because our leaders have used fear as a tool, as an instrument of social control and political control, and it is a crime. Lisa, thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you very much. Great to hear from you. Benjamin in Madison, Mississippi. Hey, Matt. Hey, Benjamin. What's up?
Hey, Tom. I was just curious. The other day, I just something came to me, and I want to get your opinion on it. We've been talking here a lot about Russia's involvement in the United States elections, and there seems to be a lot of outrage. I guess you would admit that's true, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, but hasn't there was a professor, I think, at Carnegie Mellon that did a study that since 1940 there's been over 100 involvements by governments and other foreign governments, and he said there were 70 instances that the United States had done it and about 30 that the Russia had done. In fact, it's been going on. America has been getting involved in foreign elections and trying to, affect the outcomes of those for years. Why
we have been doing that since the 1880s, since we really took over Central America.
To talk?
Pardon?
Do we have room to talk then?
You mean we live in a glass house? Should we be throwing stones? I think that no, I do think that we have room to talk, to use your phrase. If anybody is messing with our elections, whether it's Russian hackers, and whether they're representing their old friend Paul Manafort, or whether they're representing the Russian government, whether it's hackers from Hoboken, New Jersey. The one story I saw that the headline with clickbait was all about Russian hackers. Dig into the story, and they said, there's actually been thousands of intrusions, many of them successful, into the voting systems in the United States from domestic sources, from U.S. sources.
Yeah, but maybe is that because we did it as well?
Well, that's a good question. My point is, anytime you've got an election system, a voting system that's on the internet, you've got a problem. And that's what we have here in the United States. Other countries don't do that. They do not put their election systems online. And people vote on paper, so it's auditable. And like we do in Oregon and Washington State, and what they're doing in Georgia, where there's not even a paper trail. And by the way, the new movie about Don Siegelman is just absolutely mind-boggling, about how he got his election stolen by a Republican operative in the middle of the night, simply changing the numbers on a computer. And they've got it fairly well documented. And Karl Rove sent him to prison to hide it. I mean, it's just incredible. So, there needs to be a good, thorough, honest, bipartisan, non-political investigation into whether Russia or any other government participated in our election in ways that are illegal, or that in the future we should do everything we can to prevent, number one. Number two, we should find out, in terms of fake news and all that stuff, that's kind of a separate thing from messing with voting machines. But in my opinion, number three, arguably the most important thing, is that we need to have an absolute, unequivocal, explicit right for Americans to vote. And within the context of that right to vote, we need to make the process of voting safe, transparent, secure, and widely available. And we're not doing that. And I think that's a real problem. And we're not doing that, of course, because the Republicans are all about voter suppression. Benjamin, excellent question. Thanks for the call. Matt in Houston, Texas. Hey, Matt, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. I've been listening to all this stuff that's been going on the weekend. I come from an era when I remember where you could turn on any one of the network channels and got stories about things that you only get from whistleblowers now. And I remember programs like the BBC and there was another one I was thinking about. Anyway, what we've gotten right now is it's like during the Vietnam War and during the late Johnson and early Nixon years, where whenever they got ready to do something that they wanted to go under the radar, they would create some kind of story. Most of the time, it was a missile launch. It was something new at the time. Right now today we have I don't know how many generations of people don't even have a clue as to what real news is, or what, even have a clue as to what the realities that that people are talking about, even on and these different things.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, Matt. And in fact, I would encourage Americans, if you've got a cable system, check out, or for that matter, you can do it on the internet. Check out some of the international news programs. I mean, watch a half hour of Al Jazeera. Check out Deutsche Welle, which is the German news service. Check out France 24, the French service, RT, the Russian service, BBC, the British service. There's a bunch of them out there. And when you watch these international news services, you get just how banal our news has become, how profit-driven it is.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Thanks for the call, Rick. It's great to hear from you. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Randy in Ottawa, Iowa. Hey, Randy, what's on your mind?
Good day, Tom. Nice to see you back.
Thank you.
You mentioned the Dirksen building for the hearing, and I've been, of the last week, and then it started again last night, captivated by Ken Burns' documentary on Vietnam. And tonight is the night where they'll be dealing with the election, where right after LBJ says that he's not going to run for his party's nomination.
Election 68. Okay.
So I'm wondering if that recording is going to be in there, if they dug that up and put it in, about LBJ talking about the treason part.
Right. Oh, yeah, that'll be real interesting.
I hope it is.
Yeah, it's this for people who don't know what we're talking about, Randy, just a few weeks before the election, the CIA informed Lyndon Johnson, President Johnson, whose vice president, Hubert Humphrey, was running for president against Richard Nixon, and was actually, arguably forecast to win. They informed President Johnson that Richard Nixon was committing treason, that he had reached out to the South Vietnamese and told them that if they would just wait until after the election, he would make them rich, he'd give them a better deal, everything would be fine. So don't go to the Paris peace talks. Don't sign that deal that you've already negotiated with President Johnson. And Johnson was furious about it. And it will be interesting to see if it's on there. In fact, let me play it for you. Nate, if you've got a graphic of Lyndon Johnson here, we can play this whole thing. Here it is.
Here's the latest information we got. The agent says that they just talked to the boss in New Mexico. And that he says that you must hold out. Just hold on until after the election. We know what Chew is saying to them out there. Yeah. We're pretty well informed on both ends. Now, I'm reading their hand, Everett. I don't want to get this in the campaign. That's right. And they oughtn't to be doing this. This is treason. I know.
This is treason. So, yeah, Randy, it'll be very interesting. And if Ken Burns doesn't talk about Richard Nixon's treason in 1968, that's going to be pretty shocking.
Yes.
I mean, talk about, a historic exclusionary, yeah. How are we doing on time, Troy? 1 minute. Okay. Randy, thanks for the call. Good luck. Let me know what happens, okay? I doubt I'll be able to watch it tonight, but give me a shout tomorrow and let me know. Michael in Farmington, Maine. Hey, Michael, we got a minute to the break. What's up?
Yes, Mr. Hartman, I don't want to take up much of time, but in 1964-74, the United States, on a case called the United States versus Jehovah's Witnesses, was all about whether people could stand for the flag, salute, and Jehovah's Witnesses, it was a 6-3 decision. If you could look it up and talk to people, maybe it'll help them understand what America is really all about.
Right. The essence of that decision, Michael, if I'm remembering it correctly, was that if your personal conviction, religious or otherwise, in this case it was religious, if your personal conviction is that you don't want to stand for the flag, you don't have to. It's a free country.
Or the national anthem.
Correct. Yeah, or the national anthem. Yeah, and I
all this stuff is just like you say, nothing but Trump trying to hate people instead of learning about the history of America.
Yes, he is dividing us for political purposes, and that's the worst reason. Michael, thank you for the call. Great to hear from you. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And Armin in Bradenton, Florida. Hey, Armin, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, this is very critical. There's a paragraph I want to read you from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities about the repeal of the ACA. And let me read you this paragraph. It says, eliminate the ACA's marketplace subsidies and enhanced matching rate for the Medicaid expansion and replace them with an inadequate block grant. Block grant funding would be well below current law federal funding for coverage, would not adjust based on need, would disappear altogether after 2026, and could be spent on virtually any health care purpose with no requirement to offer low and moderate income people coverage or financial assistance. And there's nothing there to guarantee affordability for people with pre-existing conditions like Obamacare does now.
That's right. In fact, the individual states could say, we're going to take this federal money for health care and we're going to devote it to gold-plated hospitals for billionaires only.
Republican care, rich.
Right.
And what's going on this week, in my opinion, proves this is not a free country. It proves it's a corporatocracy run by oligarchs and criminals behind the scenes, the secret societies and fraternities. And I call what's going on with this NFL and everything, this is a convenient way. Look at all the media. This is the great flag diversion at a time where if the media was truly responsible, really represented the average people, they would be focused like a laser on the criminal activities in this Cassidy-Graham bill and the 12 chairs when there's 300 people that want to be in the hearing. The only one hearing they've had so far, Obama had 70 on health care before they put their bill forward. It's an incomplete bill. Voting on an incomplete bill is criminal. That's what this bill is, because as we're talking, they're moving it around to try to get Collins and Morawski. And I'd ask them, would you vote to take care of your state and throw the rest of the United States and the people receiving Obamacare now under the bus? Are you that?
I suspect they're not going to, Armin, but we'll see. I mean, they're Republicans, so pretty much anything is possible. The one, everything you said, by and large, I agree with the one exception, and that was the secret societies. They are not doing this in secret, Armin. They're doing it out loud in public. I mean, read the 1980 Libertarian Party platform, read the Republican Party platform. Listen to what these people are saying in public to each other. You'll recall the CNN debate where Anderson Cooper asked, Ron Paul, what if a kid without insurance gets hit by a car in front of a hospital, And the audience member yelled, let him die. I mean, that's their thinking. That's really their thinking. So it's not like, you don't need the Bilderberger group to have a bunch of, greedy right-wing billionaires and the companies that made them rich, take down the country and turn it into an oligarchy. They're doing it just fine, thank you very much, and they're doing it in public, just like they did in the 1930s, frankly. But other than that, Armin, very well said. Thank you for the call. Paul in Yarmo, California. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Oh, yeah. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind today, Paul?
Well, there's many things on my mind, many subjects that you've talked about today.
Please pick one.
Oh, only one. Okay. Well, the team ownership doesn't belong to the so-called owners. It belongs to the fans and all the other people involved.
Well, sort of. I mean, that's like saying that if you go to a movie, you own the movie. It's I think with the exception of the Green Bay Packers, and even they have moved away from that model. The Packers used to be the only team that was not owned by a billionaire.
That's true.
They were owned by the community. But what's your point? Where are you going with this, Paul?
I'm going with, well, all they would have to do is pick out any team and boycott them for about 6 weeks, and everybody go broke involved with that situation.
Well, you've got people on the right who are saying that there should be a boycott. Donald Trump, the leader of that group, trying to harm the NFL or the individual teams if they don't crack down on their black players who are protesting, racism and white supremacy in the United States. And then, of course, you've got. Actually, I haven't heard so much of a call for a crackdown, a boycott on from the people who are supportive of what these folks are doing. But interesting idea, Paul. Thanks for the call. Rick in Western West Virginia. Hey, Rick, what's up?
Yeah, you were talking about how the media and every entity these days are pitting everybody against everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I live in White Appalachia, okay? But I ain't got no white privilege. I mean, on the totem pole, I'm next to nothing. It seems like the Republicans are using they have mastered the tactic of divide and conquer. It seems like they want to get everybody to hate each other except for their group while they're taking over.
Yeah.
My son's been in the military 17 years. He went in before he was 18. 3 days after his 18th birthday, he was in combat over in Iraq. Now, he didn't do it. Of course, he's a patriotic American, but he had offered to go to West Point. He said, Dad, there's too much politics in the military. So he's an NCO. He hopes to retire. He went in there because of the propaganda, because I'll be honest with you, I believe the propaganda. We all know 9/11 was, we should have invaded Saudi Arabia, but it seems to me we get so much misinformation that it's hard for people to figure out the truth. And really,
Rick, we're out of time, but I agree with you, and it's a serious problem with our media, and it's one we all need to address. And one particular way to address it is to support progressive and independent media as well. So anyway, we'll be back tomorrow. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It does require our participation, and that includes you. Tag you're it. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242.
Or visit tomsbeets.com.